Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Law-Splaining the Interwebs. I am your host, Nick Ricada of Ricada Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. And with me tonight is a very special guest. We have Mr. Mark Kern. How's it going, man?
Howdy. It's going good. I like these late night podcasts. You can get all comfy while we do it.
Yes. And it's also nice because, despite the government trying to make day drinking the preferred drinking time, you can still drink on a late night show.
Our sheriff in OC basically said, "Yeah, we're not going to enforce the curfew." So,
Right.
good luck with that.
Well, the governor of Pennsylvania came out today and he said, "Look, there's no drinking on site after 5 p.m." I'm like, so wait, you want people trashed by the middle of the evening? Like
That's exactly what's going to happen. The law. It's like, aren't these guys professional lawmakers? Don't they know about the law of unintended consequences? Just
yeah.
And, it's game design. Law is game design. It's really about where you place the player incentives, or in this case, in real life, where you place the incentives. And you don't want what we call edge behavior or degenerate gameplay. And I think a drinking curfew is definitely going to lead to some degenerate drinking and gameplay, probably.
See, this is why I would never be a game designer, because I, contrary to that, only want degenerate gameplay, whatever that actually means. That's what I what is degenerate gameplay as far as it's defined?
Well, people call it different things. This is not about streaking through your neighborhood playing your Nintendo Switch. This is not what we mean by degenerate gameplay. What we mean is a degenerate case. It's the unintended consequence, and you make a law or a rule in the game that is meant to encourage one behavior, but it also has this inadvertent side effect that everyone ends up railroading down and breaking your economy, or becoming an exploit, or just not being a fun way to play it. Right? Because we're always, so that's what we mean by degenerate gameplay. That's what we called it at Blizzard. Other places call it different things. Everyone's got their own terminology.
Gotcha. I think this is the real problem here. We need to standardize the industry's terminology through law and fiat. We cannot have there's too much confusion going on, and we cannot have that. So I'm going to get our legislature to be on the very important task of standardizing the language at game development studios.
I look forward to the 6,000 page ISO Bible that everyone will ignore.
That's how
we're 5 Sigma game development.
Yes. That's how it feels these days, man. It's like the legislatures are pulling up and tackling these issues. It's like, this isn't anything you need to deal with. Instead of useful stuff. Although that's marginally true, I guess, because COVID has kind of changed everything. Where now legislatures are all about just not overturning whatever their governor is doing. Like here in Minnesota, we have a Democrat governor, we have a Democrat majority House, but we have a Republican majority Senate. And for like a couple months, the Republicans put up a flaccid fight on the governor's emergency powers, and now they're starting to like send out letters saying, no, the governor is good. Wear the masks. Do the things they tell you. And it's like, wait a minute. Weren't you guys fighting fight the emergency power at least? Because it's never ending. It's never ending.
No, well, they're all the same, right? And we've known this for a long time, and we were hoping for a nice monkey wrench in the system, which we got, and but we're reverting right back to it. It's so quick.
Yes, we are. That monkey wrench is being excised from the system with as much force and haste as possible. There's some big updates that happened. The Trump team has approved the transition to Joe Biden, at least the preliminary transition, which was a holdout for Trump. However, Trump has tweeted that that is not an indication that they are giving up. So,
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that tweet.
so
Yeah.
there you go. I was talking about their Pennsylvania lawsuit earlier today, and it's just not a fun situation. So let's not talk about that. Let's talk about more fun things, like
All right.
like we're gonna get to, which is big tech censorship. Because it's always fun to think about our corporate overlords doing what our government overlords have shied away from somehow. Yeah, so I don't know.
What?
I don't know where to go from that because it's depressing. But the reason, so I invited you on because since the election, there's been a sort of a tone shift both in the online culture and in at least my perception of your tweets. You've been calling out big tech censorship for a while, specifically calling out Chinese interference as well. But since the election, it seems like things are accelerating, even though it's only been a couple weeks.
Oh, absolutely. Because
yeah.
It's green light now. It's all the board's green. Everything's clear. They feel, and everything that they've wanted to do, they're going to do, and they're going to do it very, very quickly.
Right. So, what do you think? I guess what's on the early horizon, in your opinion, for this censorship push? Because, I mean, we've already seen, well, there's different kind of levels and layers and approaches that they're taking. One of them, for example, I had mentioned just before the show, Belle Delphine has been removed from YouTube for quote unquote sexualized content, which is a very
and I tweeted about that, and everybody thinks I'm like some Belle Delphine simp. And
listen, we don't think it, Mark. We know.
I've got a lot of respect for the game, and she's got a hustle, and she is a brilliant marketer. But I've actually never watched her content, so I don't know why she was banned. But I've read like all the tweets in response to that, and apparently it's it's semi-lewd, and then this stuff was tolerated for a long time on YouTube because it made a lot of money. And let's face it, that's what kept a lot of these channels around. That's why it was tolerated. But now, we're seeing independence being pushed out in favor of, it's much more important to have the corporate message out there. It's much more important to have, unidirectional communication once again, rather than bi-directional. We don't want to hear from people. We want people to hear from us. And that's going to get increasingly severe. I think what you're going to see, some pretty shocking stuff happen come January.
Yeah, I agree. I'm being told by the chat that Belle has been either has her channel back or has been informed that her channel is coming back. One of those two things. But I don't think that actually changes the calculus, because it's a shot across the bow, and the idea that YouTube is opposed to sexualized content is laughable when all you have to do is look up various music videos.
Yep.
You have to people are pointing out if you just search for nude yoga on YouTube, you can see some very nude yogis, I think. So you can
yogists.
You can find sexualized content. Well, I just think of like the Blurred Lines video by Robin Thicke. The uncensored version is not only on YouTube, it's on the Vivo like YouTube partner channel. And it contains a significant amount of Emily Ratajkowski. So I mean, there are other women in there, but who cares? But no, you don't ever see that getting taken down. You won't see Cardi B's videos getting taken down.
You won't.
Because the sort of corporatist approach to YouTube is coming full circle. And I think you had a great tweet that summarized this. It was YouTube used to be about making money. now did you type this, that now it's about preventing other places from making money? Was that
Oh, no,
you?
no, no. That was one of my followers, and I retweeted it because I thought it was brilliant.
Okay,
Uh,
yeah.
YouTube exists not to make money. In fact, it loses money, right?
Right.
YouTube exists so that it can be the dominant communication channel so that other channels don't exist. Because if you have other forms of communication, uh, smaller companies can use that. Independent creators can use that. And corporations don't want the competition. YouTube exists as the big black hole that nobody wants to leave because they can't get an audience anywhere else of significant size unless you built up a personal brand, which is something I really believe in that people need to be doing or should have been doing. But yeah, I mean, I thought that was brilliant, and it's sort of like it clicked with me. It's like why are they running this into the ground, and why do they care about losing more money by uh, getting rid of their big stars that make them millions of dollars
Right.
and that they've relied on? What is the reason? Why would they do this? It's a loss leader. You know what? People who don't know what a loss leader is, right? So
Hmm.
for video games, we used to sell we sell like whatever it is, Diablo, StarCraft, whatever it is, and Walmart or somebody would just buy it up and overnight the copies, and then they would discount it in the store, and they would lose money on every Blizzard game that they sold. But they would stick it in the flyers, they would put it on the web, and it would get people into the stores. And the theory was that you buy a copy of StarCraft and it costs them $5 rather than making 20, that you're going to go and buy $30 worth of stuff in the store while you're at it. That's what a
Right.
loss leader is, right? So take that theory, apply it to information. We're going to create an information loss leader, a sink, because we want to basically capture the entire audience and stifle and smother every other competitor out there. And that's not the only way they do it. They operate on multiple fronts. Not only are they sort of the content sink, the black hole, but they will go after other sites and call it hate speech or whatever, and they control. They're very chummy with payment processors, and
Hmm.
with Visa and PayPal, and if they can't get your DNS pulled, they will go get your funding pulled. And this is very anti-competitive practice, and it's very bold. It's very bold. It's out in the open. I remember I was a kid when this happened, like the AT&T breakup and everything like that. It's like
Right.
this is so different. This is so much more powerful and so much more ubiquitous and monolithic and unstoppable and tolerated by our politicians that it's not that the end is nigh. The end already came and went, and you didn't notice. So you talked about my change in my tone in my tweets. It was a face palm. It's like I've been talking about this for 5 years, and I don't want to say I told you so, because we have to do better than just saying I told you so. But guess what? You're upset now, but it already happened. It
Right.
already happened, and you were asleep at the wheel.
Yeah, and YouTube is so effective at this. You mentioned the idea of creating a personal brand, and while I agree that's an ideal thing to do, even with that, it's uh it's almost impossible to really create a personal brand off of a particular platform, because at the level that you can on a platform, because it's really hard to get people off of YouTube to go somewhere else. And you can see this with people who have been removed from YouTube having significant struggles, even though they had a dedicated audience, getting that audience to transfer platforms. Because while people do have brand loyalty to an individual creator, they tend to have habit loyalty to a platform, and getting them onto something that is not just handily on their phone the way YouTube is a very difficult proposition, at least in my experience. And I'll say that experience with Patreon as well. Lots of people don't like Patreon, but trying to get people to switch off of Patreon is an enormous chore to get the same level of engagement on another system. It's
I can see that, but I mean but what else are you gonna do? Because
no, I yeah,
if you
I agree.
don't, if you put all your eggs in one basket, you will suffer the arbitrary and capricious consequences which change from day to day. They like your content yesterday, they hate it tomorrow. Same content. I've said this for a long time. Don't rely on someone else's proprietary platform for your audience. You have to do whatever you can. And yeah, it's not going to be as much maybe, but I don't think people have really tried yet. And the question is, once they do try, how hard is big tech going to clamp down? So you mentioned Patreon, right? Like
Right.
I avoided Patreon right from the beginning for Ember, and we started our own monthly backer program, and wrote the software ourselves and everything else, and it has been completely worth it because I don't have to worry that if I show something about my game on Patreon that annoys some moderator, that the entire plug gets pulled and I got to start building an audience from zero again.
Right.
So, and you're going to see this with Amazon too. I mean, I'm friends with a ton of authors on Amazon, and you're going to start to see Amazon behaving more like TradPub, right? Traditional publishing, where they are, pushing certain books and throttling others, very much like how social media started to do that. And remember when that was a big conspiracy theory? Oh, they're not doing that. It's an algorithm. There are no humans involved. Nobody remembers that now. You talk to people about that, they go, "Oh yeah, that's obvious. Yeah, we
Right.
knew that. We knew that." It's like, no, you've been memory holed. You've been nem shoved. You don't remember shit. It's like
Yeah.
reality is changing so fast that what people saw as fact yesterday, today they can't even remember because the communication channels are so effectively monopolized to pound that narrative through that you completely forget, and everything else gets memory hold. So anyways, we're a little off track, but
there is no track.
there there certainly isn't. We are on a high-speed rail that is of a design not of our own, and we don't know where it leads. But I mean, concretely, let's talk about what's going to happen in January.
Right.
Immediately, Trump's going to get banned. He's going to get booted off Twitter.
I think that is coming very quickly. I was talking to my Discord about this the other day.
No matter what he says, by the way, I'm saying this like he
Right.
could say a single non-offensive tweet from here until January. It doesn't matter. It's already in the can. That's going to happen.
Someone in my Discord mentioned that Trump was going to get arrested once he was out of office, and I said, if I were pulling the strings, a more effective approach, to the shadow hand would be not to arrest Trump, would be to ban him from social media, all of them, like they did to Alex Jones, and then to go after payment processors to start removing Trump's ability to do business in the way that a business does business. And if they did that, he would not only be demonetized personally, professionally.
No, Nick, I disagree. I mean,
Oh,
I don't agree. Well, I'm sorry, but complete your thought.
No, it's just if I'm trying to destroy him, I think a better way to destroy him is to take away his social influence and to take away his access to effective financing, and then let him fade into the memory hole of society.
No, they are not. That's where we disagree.
Okay.
They are not going to take an Alex Jones approach. They are not going to erase him from the internet. What they're going to do is on multiple fronts, definitely go after him, harass him. What you were saying, you're going to see more state prosecutors, looking through his business finances. You're going to see a lot of, obviously removal from social media. Payment processors, I think, are a little tricky when you're talking about businesses, the scales that he runs it at, but definitely some grumblings there. There'll be harrying attacks, but what I think is really going to happen is they're going to make a public example. They don't want this to ever happen again.
Sure.
So this isn't going to be memory hold. It's going to be amplified. The press is going to continue to attack him on multiple fronts, personal fronts, business fronts, no longer politics. And you're going to see some really vicious stuff. And it's not going to come from the government, because, it's not going to come from from the office of the White House, the Biden White House. That's
Right.
not the way it operates. It's going to happen at the grassroots level, but it's going to be very, very public, because it has to be. And it's not just going to be Trump. You're going to see a massive tech censorship purge across the board of every significant influencer that backed him. They're all going. January. Yeah. They're gone.
That's true. I think you're right there. My talk about him fading into the memory hole was a long-term plan, but I do, and the reason I think that it will be that is eventually, I think once the destruction is complete, the punching bag will have lost its use and go into the closet. Of course, that could be a really long window. So,
and they'll draw it out, and I'll tell you why, because he makes the media money.
Right.
They're making so much money punching him. They're not going to stop. In fact, they got to keep that going as long as they can. And it has the other benefit of the public spectacle, right? Like, hey, just so you populace, meaning you people, don't get any ideas, we're going to remind you of what happens if you get uppity. And you're going to hear about this for a year. You're going to hear about this for a year. It's going to be nonstop. It's going to get worse.
The next year, I agree. The next year is full on endless Trump bashing. They'll probably reopen investigations. Poor General Flynn. He's now that Trump is lost, Flynn is going to prison. There will be no unless Trump pardons him prior to leaving office, which he probably should. Flynn is going to have some real trouble for him, because his suit has basically just been delayed through the election. But yes, Trump himself will be a punching bag for the media. I do think we're going to see some reopened investigations as far as 2016. I don't think that they'll be profitable or fruitful as far as criminal information. I just think that they'll be worth.
They don't have to be
worth running they have to. I think undo the legitimacy of 2016 to 2020. I think they have to complete that task that they started 4 years ago. And so I think that's coming over the next year, especially to really usher in the Biden presidency in the way they want to have it happen.
Yeah, I agree. That's a really good observation, that they would want to undo anything good that happened or maybe perceived as good over the past 4 years. And I think what you said, to delegitimize it and destabilize it, and to render it moot. But it's going to be so much worse than that. And I think you're seeing Twitter and Facebook. Just they're the Ministry of Truth from Harry Potter, right? I used to tweet about that. This is even before Trump, right? I used to say, look, we can't have tech being our censors. It's one thing if you pass laws and say we can't have this sort of speech or that sort of speech, and it holds up, fine, whatever. But you've got platforms that control the majority of political discourse, which is the highest form of protected speech, right?
Right.
And maybe some people don't know that there's like different levels of sort of quasi protection for speech depending on the subject matter, right? And I'm trying to remember my old constitutional law here. Help me out. Yeah. And then, but political speech is like right up there, right? Like you don't touch political speech.
Right. Political speech and religious speech are up at the top. Commercial speech is somewhere lower than that. And then you have, it just goes down the list from there. Whatever type of speech you want to come up with, there's a classification for it. Even unprotected speech, of course, has a classification, and that would be stuff like genuine obscenity, which involves very few things and
Gamer Girl
nothing to
bathwater is a
Right.
genuine obscenity.
No, that is artistic speech, and it's right below religious speech, and we're trying to elevate it all the way up so we can worship at the altar of
to a
bathwater.
religion. But
yeah.
so you've got these social media platforms regulating political speech more effectively than a government could.
Oh, much
right?
more effectively.
Who cares if the government, if the law says the government can't do that? It's like, well, that was great when the government controlled most of formal communications, but we're in a time now where corporations do, and it's not like many corporations. We're talking about three. Maybe we're talking about the fingers on one hand, and nobody elects them. They're not accountable to anybody but their shareholders.
Mm-hmm.
And we are just gladly handing that over, just like we gladly handed over our privacy, all our data tracking. We have given them a police state voluntarily, and now we are giving them every single freedom we have remaining. And we're smiling as we do it.
Did you watch the 2:30 hearing with Zuckerberg and Jack at the Senate Judiciary hearing? They did it was last week.
No, not its entirety. I just watched the Ted Cruz clips because he talks a great game. I wish he would actually do something, but he's good at nailing them. And it's like, hey, it's good theater, but let's see you back it up. But that's all I've watched. Yeah,
he was good, but you gotta watch Hawley, Josh Hawley. He was fantastic. Marsha Blackburn comes in with the steel chair, to borrow the wrestling analogy, at the end. She closed it out, and she was brutal, specifically to Zuckerberg, who up until that point they really seemed to be focusing on Jack more than Zuckerberg. And then out of nowhere, Marsha Blackburn comes and torches Zuckerberg. It was beautiful. And even Senator Kennedy from Louisiana, the slow talking, thick Louisiana accent, is out there looking like a complete bumpkin and then dropping nukes at the end. It was like he was just leading Jack into all these, into saying exactly what he wanted, which is great. But like you said, it's great to watch. It's good red meat on the theory of it, but they're not applying it. They're not going after them. But the scariest part of that whole hearing was listening to every Democrat in the room literally beg Big Tech to censor more. And that it was like, what, who are you people? I know that the government, what you're saying is that, it's much more effective to have Big Tech censor than government, because the government, is bound by the Constitution. It's really hard for them to do so. But the scary thing is that,
well, they're also inept and they don't have a really good communication channel. So
right. But the scary part is the government is cheering on Big Tech to do it, because they don't. So what they're signaling is, we know it would be hard for us to do it. We'll just let these guys do it. But what we'll try and do is get them to do what we want them to do. And they are full in on the censorship buy-in of Big Tech. I mean, they were flat out saying, we're disappointed that Facebook and Twitter haven't done enough fact checking, haven't labeled enough tweets to be dubious or whatever. It's like, wait a minute. It's
not just our country. It's every country in the world is yelling at Facebook and Twitter to do more. And Facebook and Twitter are actually happy to do so. They're happy to control it. And I don't think it started that way. I think that, at the time of the Arab Spring and everything else like this, Twitter was actually celebrating that they were a free speech platform. And then foreign governments started to get very, very upset with them. And at some point, the thought shifted from, oh, shit, we're in trouble with governments, to, wait a second, we can be the government.
Right.
And and then they started agreeing to this stuff. I mean, you had clips way back when. Wasn't there like some leak between Merkel and Zuckerberg back in 2015, 2016? They were caught on a hot mic where, I guess Angela Merkel or somebody was saying, hey, can we work together to enhance censorship on Facebook? And Zuckerberg's like, absolutely, basically. I'm paraphrasing, but
right.
And nobody thought of it back then, and I was looking at this going, that's kind of a red flag. And
it's the reddest of flags.
Yeah. So I was thinking for a long time, it's like, why would corporations, knuckle under? I mean, Google used to be, don't be evil. We're not going to put our search engine in China because we have these American values, right? And we don't want to enable an oppressive nation. And then, so much pressure was applied, and people think they're caving because of the money. I don't think so. I think they're caving because big tech finally realized they can run things, and they should run things. And I've been noticing the increasing arrogance. I used to talk about this, again, I started noticing it about 5 years ago, the increasing arrogance of Silicon Valley that says, well, we've revolutionized the way the world works, so we're in the best position to tell people what's best for them, to lead people. And because we're smarter than you and we know better than you. We made a lot of money, see? So we must be smarter than you. But they also don't understand human nature. And I think that is going to be ultimately their fatal flaw when this stuff goes forward. It's going to take a while, but this stuff's always going to come bite you in the ass later.
Yeah, the thing with big tech is, I think at a certain point, the money becomes unimportant. There is money is a driver for a long time, but at some level, like Jeff Bezos, right? What can't he get with money? Like, what level of money does Jeff Bezos need to achieve? I don't think he's at all motivated by money at this point. He's worth what, $170 billion. And, there's nothing out of reach for him. So what incentive does he have to add another $1 billion or $2 billion to his net worth? And really, it's the same for Zuckerberg. It's the same for Jack. They're at the level of wealth where the number that comes next is irrelevant, because they could quit tomorrow and never work again and have more money than many nations on the planet will ever have, just by function of interest. So, at some point, there's another motivating force that comes in. I do think that sort of control aspect is a big part of it. And I don't think it's the nefarious, like, mustache rubbing control. I think it's more subtle than that. And I think it's what you mentioned, where they've been told over and over, and at that Senate hearing, they were reminded over and over, oh, you've changed the way the world communicates, and probably for the better, even from Republicans and stuff like that, who are opposed to them are saying this. And they say, yes, we have built the world into a better place, and we can go farther. We can do more. It's almost like they have a good intention about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the most terrifying aspect of it to me.
Oh, absolutely. I don't, and it doesn't take a conspiracy. It just takes an idea to spread and everyone to think that it's a good idea, and to get people on board and to act independently but concertedly, right? Because they're acting on the same idea. It looks like a conspiracy, but it's really not. All you need is a bunch of people to say, hey, it really would be a good idea for us to be in charge of speech and for us to protect people and do this, because we control the communications, we have AI technology, we have incredible reach, and we're in the best position to do this. So I think I'm going to steer my company towards this direction. And then Zuckerberg says, I think I'm going to steer my company towards this direction. And then they get together and they trade notes, and they're like, it was a good idea. Yes, it's a good idea. But there's no shadow room with 13 tech executives sitting around an oval table twirling mustaches, as you said. It doesn't need to happen that way. And you still get the same effect.
Right, and it's a similar thing that you mentioned, AT&T's breakup, and that was the issue. that they had with the lawsuits before the breakup of the big telecoms back when phones were the big telecom was they could never point to that meeting where these guys were getting together and having the meeting of deciding where they would and wouldn't compete. And that was because they didn't really need to have one. They just aligned, they all just aligned their business practices towards what was beneficial. And what was beneficial was if your competitor was in Detroit, you don't go to Detroit, you go to Milwaukee. And if your competitor was in, Dallas, you went to Fort Worth. And then the other guy would go, oh, well, they're in Fort Worth. We don't need to expand over there. We'll expand somewhere else. And they just divvied up the cities that way, and they didn't need to compete with each other. And the same thing is happening with big tech, I think, although Hawley tried to point out that there is evidence of some collusion between Twitter and Facebook's moderation teams. And Zuckerberg tried to pretend like he didn't know anything about it, which was pretty funny to watch him squirm through that one. But at the same time,
but you know how that happens. Here's how it can happen. I'm not saying that I know this, right? But I've seen this. I've seen similar things happen before. Hey, I'm on a moderation team at Twitter, and some other guys at a moderation team on Facebook, and we all have friends, and we form a Facebook group, a private Facebook group, and we chat about this stuff. And our bosses don't know. The higher ups don't know, but the stuff gets coordinated anyways, just because people talk and they're all in like professions and they have professional groups. It can happen through the rank and file.
Oh yeah. And that's what I was saying before. It doesn't ever need to be in that meeting room. It was just funny watching Hawley point out, because he had some evidence, like he had some program names and stuff where there's been specific communications between Twitter and Facebook, and to watch Zuckerberg be like, I don't know about that program, or that's not what that's for.
Or the infamous, I'll have to get back to you on that on our next meeting. And then they never do.
They never do. I was saying that while watching it. I'm like, I have never seen the follow-up where all of the documentation that they promised to provide at the oral hearing is ever presented. And
that happened in the Ted Cruz clip. Ted Cruz was like, how many Republicans and how many Democrats have you censored, or posted warning on? I don't have that information. And then, it's like, well, you asked the same question, Ted, at the last hearing, and they said they would get back to you, and you're not holding them to it today. So what's going on? So,
well, what's going on is the Senate hearings are largely toothless. In the long run, it's like, it's illegal to lie to the Senate, but they're not gonna charge Zuckerberg or Jack with perjury ever, because they'll just ban them. Just think about that, Jack. If Jack bans, this is what I said going into the election, and when I say going into the election, I mean like in May. It was like, what happens if Twitter bans major political candidates? They'll lose. They won't have a chance. And they didn't actually ban Trump, which I said, what happens if they ban Trump during the election? But they did start to put those fact checks on him. They started suppressing his tweets, and they flat out said at one of the hearings that when you got that tag, the tag that says that this information is disputed or whatever, and it blanks out the tweet, that it impacts distribution. So they did a shadow censoring, although it was right out in the open, of Donald Trump. He ends up losing the election despite having tons of metrics that suggest that he would win the election. Everything except the polls, but the polls were clearly wrong. All of the other indicators have him favored. He's an incumbent. He's highly popular. His base is motivated. He gets more votes than ever before. He still ends up losing the election. And I personally think a large part of that has to do with tech's intervention on it. So
here's the thing with that.
Yeah, here's ahead.
The thing. Everybody who is on social media, who uses it for aggregating political opinions and everything else, everybody knew shadow banning was happening. Everybody knew algorithms were suppressing their tweets and traffic. They were telling Republicans and the president this every single day. And now you act surprised that they come in at the very end and start labeling all your tweets when you did shit for 4 years. This is the part of me that says, hey, everybody had it coming. Everybody who lost an election had it coming because, this stuff was so obvious and steps were never taken and there was no plan. And, just like there was no plan to handle, well, what if mail-in ballots are a problem? It's like, you've been talking about how they've been a problem for 6 months to a year, and you didn't have a plan.
But like, I love that, this is what happened, right? Like 3 years ago, someone's like, oh, by the way, Mr. Trump, as we start to strategize for your reelection, we're the small team, right? Before we blow up into the big team, start to strategize for your reelection. We do see a problem with this idea of mail-in ballots, but there's no, look, they only make up a tiny fraction of the vote. There's no way they're going to be a big deal. So, and then of course, COVID comes and miraculously COVID arrives in an election year. Right at the beginning of the election year cycle, disrupts everything, and of course creates the environment for the largest mail-in balloting that's ever occurred in any country ever.
I look back on my Parler account and I called the COVID thing. I said COVID's a huge gift to the Democrats, and I said this is what's going to happen. I said Trump's going to lose, and this is what's going to happen. And I forgot about Parler, right? Because we use it sporadically, and then we sort of like forget about it for a while. So I forgot about it for like 6 months, and then I went back to Parler because Parler got hot again, and everyone's like checking it out. And I was like, wow, 6 months ago I was talking about this, and it absolutely played out exactly how I said it would. And it was interesting. It was like going back to a diary and reading something in the past and being, oh, geez, I guess I was right about that. But
my last parlay, I started using it again recently because I think a lot of my friends are talking about leaving Twitter at the end of the year. And I'm thinking it might be a good idea because I hate Twitter. I don't like going on it. It's stressful. It's nasty. And you had tweeted something about that too, right?
Yeah, this is the thing. And people don't understand how real this is. Okay. I get anxious and upset when I read Twitter. I try to read nothing but my own notifications. As of I think a year ago, I stuck to games, right? I got out of political tweeting. And I just stuck to games because it was really, it's like, look, I don't want to become a political pundit. I don't want to, it's like,
right.
I was kind of headed that direction in early 2016. And I was like, no, I don't want to, I want to do games. But here's the very real effect of social media. People don't remember that in, I think it was early 2012 to 2015, somewhere around there, Facebook ran an experiment. Where, and this is a time where your Facebook feed wasn't curated before, right?
Oh, yes.
It was just
blissful
chronological
time.
And except Facebook ran an unethical experiment where they took thousands and thousands of users and without their knowledge or consent ran a psychological experiment run by psychologists where they manipulated their feeds to show them either certain types of views and and promote certain friends' tweets and to suppress others. Mm-hmm. And what they learned from this is they can force people to be depressed. They can force people to be happy. They can force people to be angry. And it worked really, really well. And this was news. This is all public. This isn't conspiracy theory. You go look it up, right? And at the time, it was a big deal. People were like, oh, you can't do that to people. And now it's like, do what you want.
Yep.
We've been slapped around so much. Our heads spinning. We can't tell if you slap us again.
Just remind me what I posted on Facebook 8 years ago today, please. That's what I want. I want my Facebook memories.
Fleets. So what they discovered is that they had a power. They could absolutely make you feel certain ways. And all they had to do was to use an algorithm to promote certain things. And this is when algorithms started to take off. As soon as that experiment was proven to be highly effective, you got more and more algorithms driving stuff, not for safety, not for anything else. And at first, it was to sell you stuff, and then later on, they're deliberately manipulating your emotions. Your
Hmm.
feed is designed to generate negative energy because, and I said this about Twitter. I said the reason Twitter exists is people can yell at each other.
Yep.
They want those negative emotions. They want, this is the first forum where you can yell at a celebrity. You can yell
Right.
at a politician direct to their face. You can take it right to them, right? So you can drag them if you get enough people, and it feels good. The little guy's
You
got
can
power, you
you
know?
can destroy their careers. Like
You can
that's
destroy their career.
yeah. And
So,
people have, and they do it effectively. There are guys right now, a voice actor just recently who did some Star Wars stuff. Like he got creamed for stuff that I think he didn't even say. Like people faked it and then went after him, and he's got just annihilated. He had like a real like sort of sad tweet where he was like talking about how, oh, I respect what you say. You can disagree with me. That's fine. Just don't lie about me. And I was like, oh, buddy, that's cute. that's
so,
like
so,
that's like
so
10
think
years
about
ago.
this. So think about this. If you're a Democrat and you have been angry and frightened and depressed for the last 4 years, that's not by accident.
Hmm.
If you're a Republican and you've been outraged by this or that and you're demoralized, that is not by accident. This is a very, I mean, they do this. We know they do this. We know they ran experiments to prove it to themselves. This is extremely deliberate. They have more influence over our elections and our national mood than people are realizing. People are worried about Russians running Facebook ads that a couple thousand people saw. You know,
It's the
what about
biggest non-issue I've ever heard of. It's amazing when they really like broke down what this was and you saw the numbers behind it. You're like, wait, these ads were seen by 200,000 people that might not have all been American, and these are supposed to sway voters like that. That we're worried about that. It was nonsensical.
Oh yeah, what's happening is we're being programmed, we're being nam shoved. Do you know the term nam shove is from Snow Crash?
No,
It
I
was
haven't read Snow Crash yet.
so Snow Crash is one of those classic novels of original cyberpunk written by Neil Stephenson, right?
Yep.
And in that novel, basically, there's a program going around that's a computer virus that's hacking people. It's sort of like Inception meets hacking, right? And it's sort of like plants ideas in their heads and things like this. What it's you people are being absolutely programmed by social media, not just to buy stuff, but to manipulate outcomes the way that tech companies feel is good for people. Again, I agree with you. I don't think people sit there going, ha 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 ha, I'm going to be as evil as I can. This is zealotry. This is people who believe that this is the one true way, and they realize that not everyone's going to go along with it, so they're going to do everything they can to bring people together because they want Star Trek. They
Right.
want the ideal Star Trek future where we're homogenous and we have a war with the Klingons, but then we're friends, later on. And that's a noble goal, right? Like, who doesn't
Yeah.
want Star Trek? That'd be pretty cool. I want to go around a starship and be
Well,
friends with everybody. And
in the
yeah,
short term, it's even simpler than that. They want to be the thing that ended racism, right? Like that's the idea. If they can snuff out racism, then imagine what they've done that has never been done before. And it can all be attributed to social media or this wonderful invention of new communication and a way to really just and the way you do it is by cornering off the racists and putting them in their little ostracized area of the internet until they go away.
no, they don't. They don't. I used to think that they don't want to do that.
They don't want to do that.
They're not trying to solve racism.
Okay.
They're
See,
trying to ferment it. They're
I
trying to ferment it. They're trying to actually by what happens when you take a bunch of people and you gag them and you silence them and you kick them off the internet. Are
I
they going to be
think
happy? Are they going to sit down?
well no, I think it's I think what they do, I do think they foment it in the short term, but I do think the long-term goal is elimination. But I don't think I'm not saying they kick them off of Twitter or kick them off Facebook. I think they put them in their communication bubbles, and that bubble gets smaller and smaller as the ostracism convinces everybody else to stay away.
But the algorithm feeds we're segregating the bubbles, but the algorithm selectively picks stories and feeds them to both groups to get them angry. And the reason you want people angry about all this stuff is so that they're not angry that you've taken away all their rights. They're not angry that you have taken control of the world from governments. They're not angry that there's no longer a constitution. There is a terms of service that guides your laws and behaviors. That's the important stuff. It's the power. Right. And it's a traditional technique that you keep the plebes, all of us, right, fighting amongst ourselves over things like which bathrooms we can use, so that we're not fighting them on freedom of speech, so that we're not fighting them on, the right to bear arms. So we're not fighting them for, upholding the Constitution. That's the fight they don't want to happen.
Sure. I can see that. Say I've got some chats here that are for you. So I want to read a couple of those and then we can kind of pick back up.
Sure.
Because I don't want to get too far behind on these. Blaine 20 says, Mark, are those assless chaps or are you just happy to see Nick?
You probably have no idea what that's about.
I don't, but I'm with it. What's the Assless Chap story?
All right. So we did a crowdfunding for Ember.com, which is our innovative MMO, Mech versus Kaiju. It's a dynamic war front.
I have to renew my subscription because people keep trying to use my debit card to buy stuff in other states and countries, and so my debit cards keep getting shut down, and then I have to keep resetting them for everything. I hate it.
I'm sorry, but I know it's an annoying process because you got to wait for the thing to expire before you can resub. We're working on that, but the Assless Chaps came out as a stretch goal because and I'll give you a tip for those of you running crowdfunding and you've exceeded your funding goal maybe, or you're thinking about what's going to get people excited for a stretch goal. Stop trying to do it yourself and guess. Ask your community. So this is what we did. We asked our community, what do you want for stretch goals? And they gave us a ton of great ideas. We didn't have to adopt all of them. Some of them were really bad ideas. Assless Chaps was one of them. So they said, we want that for our characters. And I said, okay, I set some like ridiculous goal. I said, okay, if we reach this, then you'll get Assless Chaps. Oh, son of a gun. They were within $5,000 of doing it. And I almost had to put them in the game.
Oh, so no, you should have had a higher stretch goal where the dev team takes a picture in Assless Chaps.
Oh yeah. Exclusive access to our OnlyFans. I'll remember that for our Kickstarter next year when we do a Kickstarter.
There you go. Yep. You could do the waifu OnlyFans. That's actually an interesting idea.
Well, contrary to popular belief, we are waifu oriented, but we're not that waifu oriented. We are focused on gameplay. We are focused on, piloting all manners of cool mecha, from like, the light sort of armored suits from Firefall, which are kind of like half Iron Man suits, all the way to like exosuits and armored core type mecha, all the way to Jaeger sized stuff that you see in Pacific Rim. That's our meat and potatoes. The waifus are just a blessing upon us all.
Waifus are always a blessing upon us all.
And husbandos. We have husbandos too.
But no one cares about them. Come on, let's be real. No, I'm just kidding.
There is a very vocal segment that does, and it's true. The ratio is nowhere near the same. But I like the idea that it's kind of like equal opportunity. So it's like let's go ahead and make the guys attractive. And attractiveness is so different now. It's so much more Asian. I know we're totally going off track, but I gotta talk about this.
No, this is on track. I want to talk about this. The election and doom pilling is great, but I also just at the same time want to be in my mode of escape,
So
because all this is so
so
horrifying.
so I'm an American, and I was born an American citizen overseas. My dad had my passport ready pretty much the day I was born because he was high level in the CIA, had State Department connections. So and so even though I was born in Taiwan, my
Right.
dad, I was naturalized like right away, and I grew up overseas, which has a very different aesthetic for hero types, right? We grew
Right.
up on kung fu movies, and and the most muscly guy we got was Chow Yun Fat, who was just a little chubby, right? So
Exactly. Yes. Well, what
and then I
about
was,
Bolo? Bolo Young, though. I mean,
you know,
Bolo was swole as hell.
that comes later. So and then Star Wars came out, and I remember seeing Star Wars, and I was so excited. And then Christmas comes along, and the toys arrive, and I get the Luke Skywalker figure, right?
Mhm.
But Luke is not what he looks like in the movie. In the movie, he's a thin kid, right? Instead, I get like He-Man in robes.
You get a repurposed G.I. Joe figure.
and everybody was this way. On Solo, everybody was freaking buff, right? And I was like, and I was like, what is this? I hate this aesthetic. Now it's all come around. Right now, K-pop is so popular here, and the K-pop boys and everything else. It's like, if you look at what's considered the height of male attractiveness amongst the younger generation now, it's definitely moved away from the He-Man type and more towards what I'm used to. So that's cool with us. We'll do both types. We have a very extensive character creator, right? And we're even talking about, because there's fads out there, like for waifus we do thick waifus, right? Because thick waifus are really popular. We have an option to do that, and I know that people want more moe waifu, right? The cute stuff, and so
It's moe.
It's a Japanese term for sort of like so cute you could pinch their cheeks type of thing.
Okay, sure, yeah.
It's adorable, right? It's like and so when we know we have to go and fulfill that sector too. And then for the guys, we know that we have to go more. We have to have that K-pop aesthetic, that Final Fantasy VII remake type of aesthetic. And then we also need to go the other direction. We got to have dad bods. Dad bods are really popular now.
Yeah, but I like that you have to have my 135-pound hero bodies. Running around saving the world with a giant sword that weighs as much as them. It's perfect.
And you know what? I can loop this. I can plug this back into censorship.
Okay, yeah.
All right. So everyone thinks, oh, you're gonna talk about navels and Sony.
This is like Ron Popeil here. Look, I'm gonna bring it back right now to roasted turkeys. Just watch me. Here we go.
What we're not doing is anime cell shaded, right? Because we have some outfits that are a little risque. What do I mean by risque? For us, it's showing midriff, right? It's showing a little bit of thigh, maybe a shoulder. So,
what about navel? How much navel is in this on a scale of 1 to Mark Kern? How much navel is on this game?
There's plenty of navel to go around, but I recognize it's not everyone's cup of tea. That's why we have things like skin muting and things like this, and in lore versus out of lore. We're the only game to do this, and I can talk about that later. But I promise to bring it back around to censorship. It's like anything with an anime face, and this was a stigma that has been here for decades, is considered kid stuff, right?
Yep.
And so anything with an anime face that's in any way vaguely sexual is considered verboten. And you see Australia banning hentai now and France banning hentai. So I'm glad we're not going cell shaded. So our characters are stylized but realistic. They have the sort of like anime expectations, but they don't look anime. They don't, and people haven't seen our new character art yet. We're under a huge art revamp. Like I said, I told you earlier in the call, I've been waking up like 4 or 5 a.m. having calls with artists, and then sleeping, and then going and having more calls, and then doing more, the things that I need to do for the. But so we're hitting all these tropes, but we're not going to go cell shaded. And I think there's the only safe harbor for that. You're going to see a lot more censorship in games. You're going to see Sony's definitely clamping down. Even Steam is against some visual novels. and they're going to go after anime first. So
Steam is hilarious. They have literal porn games on there where you just go around and have sex with people in VR or whatever. They have that, but they're opposed to like a visual novel, which is the most. It's like this is the least interesting of the. It's the least sexualized sexual content, in my opinion, like the still picture. But maybe I'm crazy. But when you can go to the VR strip club and go into the back room and get a VR blowjob or whatever, to me that's a little more explicit than like an anime picture hidden behind a puzzle. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. But they're going to go after anime first, and that's just because it's an easy target. Look, all this stuff starts with the easy targets because normies look at anime and go, those are kids, right? And it's like, no, they're not. And it starts with the targets that the normies can understand. And then once that mechanism is in place, it is then leveraged out to a broader medium. And look at social media. I said this when Alex Jones got deplatformed. I said, this is an experiment. This is a test. And that tweet went viral, when I made that tweet. And I said, I don't follow Alex Jones. I don't even know what he talks about. Maybe some of the stuff is really crazy. Whatever it is, he's really entertaining because he's got a lot of people following him. But I said, this is a test. You go after the one that all the normies go, oh my gosh, he said this about that. Yeah, we should definitely do something about him. We should definitely do something about him.
Right.
And so now you've got your foot in the door and you've tested it and you've been able to sell it to everybody and to everybody to nod their heads along. Now you just broaden it a little bit more and more. Now it's commonplace to be deplatformed. It's no longer a rare thing. And nobody thinks anything of it. So same thing with censorship in games. You're going to see this. This is my prediction. You're going to see this with anime first, and that's already happening. But don't expect it to stop there. It will broaden from there. And who's it going to favor? It's going to favor AAA publishers who can go out and put out like games like The Last of Us 2, which has sex scenes in it. Right. But if Devil May Cry shows a navel, for heaven's sake, they got to put a freaking lens flare as big as half your screen on it. It's the censorship is there not to protect you. It's there to protect big money interests that have a lock on the market. AAA publishers.
That's what I was saying during the Senate hearing, because one of the things that was a recurring theme that both Zuckerberg and Jack said when the Republicans would bring up revising 230 as a big threat. This didn't come up in the Cruz clips, but it came up everywhere else. Both Zuckerberg and Jack agree and want 230 revised. They want a regulatory structure around big tech. But the trick, of course, is that they'll be the ones involved in writing that structure. And what they will do is they will write it to keep out competition and to effectively regulate themselves into the position of leadership and cement themselves there forever. That's always the goal with with industry insiders going in and working with regulators on how to craft effective regulation.
Just like Uber and Lyft,
Yep.
Going in and crafting legislation that favors them. And I'll tell you how these companies operate, right? Because this is going to get me in so much trouble.
Yes, do it. Always get you in trouble on my show.
So, I've played the VC game. I've raised so much money from venture capital as well as, traditional publishing methods and everything else. Mm-hmm. And I know how this game is played. And I'm in the boardroom, and and I'm not going to name names, but one of my board members is also involved with Uber, and I won't say at what level, right?
Sure, yeah.
And so
he's a driver. Mark's just talking him up. Just don't worry.
Like those reveal books. What was that reveal book that came out? It was like the tell all about Trump, and it was like some minor official,
some secretary to some like mid-level. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah. No, I'll tell you what the strategy is. It's like they don't care about the law, and we discussed this very openly. They said the way you got to do this is you just go in and you do it. You go in and you do it. Fuck the law. fuck the law. Go in and you do it, and then get big really fast, and then you change the law.
Yep. No, it's dead right.
Brazen. It's quite brazen in Silicon Valley and in venture capital. They don't care what your government says. They're going to go and do what they think is right for the world anyways, and then they're going to get the laws changed when they're big enough because they got all the money and you can't do anything about it anymore.
Yep. It's and the amount it's an interesting cycle because since venture capital is so apt to support Silicon Valley projects, they have a self-fulfilling potential to do exactly what you just said. It's like if you're in the middle of Iowa trying to start a donut stand, you're like, fuck the law. I'm going to make these donuts with cocaine in them, and then I'm going to get big, and I'm going to change the law. That's not going to work, right? Look, I may be a billionaire tomorrow when I go to Iowa and start my business, but it doesn't work there. But in Silicon Valley, they start their project. They're gonna get those venture capital millions of dollars, and they're gonna hit the ground running really hard. And so they have that possibility of their business, quote unquote, going viral, and doing.
They force it now. They force
Right.
it now. Like what they do is they find a project and and if it's got any sort of traction at all, and it could result in a power shift, you'll see companies pour billions of dollars. You'll see investors pour billions of dollars into something that's losing money because they want to grow. It's like steroids. It's like, we're just going to steroid you up and you're going to go global tomorrow. And and that's a very powerful force, and these are very large international entities that are powering this.
It's great. It's great that we have a sector of the economy that is always going to be thriving based on that premise. This is from The Dragon's Treasure. You'd probably like this guy. He makes anime themed tea, high quality, like loose leaf tea. But so it's from him. He says, Mark, first, thanks for one of the best gaming experiences of my life with OG World of Warcraft. Second, can you give a TLDR timeline of when things began to go bad over at Blizzard? If you could go back in time, what would you do differently to avoid the people who destroyed? And then he goes to a second message. I forgot where I left off just 5 seconds ago because I'm an idiot. If you could go back and do it again, what would you do differently to avoid the people who helped bring in the ruin? How could people like me better spot them in my future business endeavors? So kind of a big question.
Yeah, I know the exact moment it shifted. The tipping point, right?
Okay, what was that?
And this was the beginning of, I don't want to say the end, because it was very successful and it worked and they got really, really big, right? Blizzard used to be about what we called boutique gaming. We didn't want to be the Walmart or the Costco of gaming. Walmart, we said back then, because Walmart was gigantic and the most successful company in America, right?
Right.
We said we didn't want to be the Walmart. We want to be the Gucci, right? We want like really high quality, really focused, and maybe we don't get mass market, we don't get really huge, but we have this insane following, and they will support us and they will continue to buy our games, and they'll make our company very profitable just by doing that, right? Mm-hmm. And we will have a untarnished brand, and we did a lot to protect that brand. We killed entire games, millions of dollars to protect that brand, because we said we can't ever ship shit in a box. We can do that once and then we're done. Yep. Turns out that wasn't true. They did Diablo 3.
No, but you're right, because Diablo 3 at launch was a jumbled, grindy mess. It was horrendously nasty. I think they made it a lot better when they it's
a good game. Yeah. It didn't start that way.
No, I played it from jump, and it was once you got to those Inferno difficulties, the game was frustrating and nasty and just terrible. And they've made it a lot better since. But man, it sucked at the beginning.
Here's where it turned at Blizzard. So, we have been developing World of Warcraft. It is the first time the company has ever lost money because of how expensive it was to make that game. And the other products, weren't coming out for in a timely fashion. Oh my God, it's Blizzard not shipping in a timely fashion. Imagine that. These assholes. And so there was a lot of worry, and then everyone was asked to crunch basically. And I was always really happy that our team, if as long as we had the resources, we didn't have to crunch. If we had the people and everything else, we were ahead of our E3 demos by weeks, and we didn't have to crunch.
Right.
But the game had to come out, and it was do or die time. And there's severe penalties if you announce a ship date in Europe and you don't ship, then there's retailer penalties that you got to pay millions of dollars, things like this. And so I was asked to burn the team, and get them to really crunch, and that was already a little worrisome. Although I am of the mind that if you want to succeed and you want to be the best, some amount of crunch is necessary. But we're talking about over a year these people had been crunching, right? Myself, everyone else. I'm walking around with multiple phones because it's 24/7. It's ringing, and I've got a different phone for different purposes.
This is good though, because you can play Diablo Immortal on 2 different phones.
Yeah, we have to talk about that too. So, anyways, the whole company's killing themselves, right? Everybody in the trenches, absolutely killing themselves. And then I get an email. It's like, all right, we have to cut staff. We've got to cut 1 out of 10. And I'm like, you're going to do a 10% reduction in the workforce. We're about to ship this massive game. And we didn't know how massive it was going to be, right? But I said, these guys have been working their ass off. And so we had a high level meeting about it. And it was me, and it's 5 people in the room. Okay. And I don't want to name names.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
And I said, listen, I hired these people because I said, and we used to do this. One of the things I promised these people is that we don't binge and purge. There's so many AAA teams out there that'll hire up a big bulk team and then lay everybody off at the end of it. And after they burned them out, I said, we don't do that here at Blizzard. And I gave everybody on my team that word, and that's what I've lived here at Blizzard for all of these years. This is the mantra that we live by, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, it's wrong. And it's like, yeah, I understand we have to strengthen the team. There's some people that aren't pulling their weight. It's like, why can't that happen naturally over the cycle of 6 to 12 months, where we if there's people underperforming and they don't turn around, we let them go. It's like, why does it have to be this on this day? There's going to be this huge layoff right about as we're about to ship a game, and everyone has killed themselves to ship both this game and I think Warcraft 3 at the time and everything else.
Right.
And I said, and what about the promise? What about what we tell people when we hire them? And then one of the execs turned to me, and I'm an exec too, right? One of the execs turns to me and says, well, Mark, we're a real company now. That's when I knew.
Whoa.
That's when I knew that everything had changed and shit was going to go downhill from here. And so, of course, we did the layoffs. I'm sitting here, and listen, layoffs are never easy, right? I'm sitting here, I got tears in my eyes. I got people's names on the list that I know, and they're good people, right? But this is the order, and the way it was done was so ham-handed. They didn't even know how to do it right. And I kept trying to tell them, it's like, you can't do it this way. They had people in the parking lot screaming at other people, warning them, that this was happening as they were pulling into Blizzard. It was so chaotic. It was such a mess, and it wasn't done with dignity or respectfulness or grace or anything else. And because Blizzard had never done it before. And even though I'd seen this at other companies and I tried to talk about it, it was like, hey, we're a real company now. We're like EA.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. Well, that's the meeting that I decided. It's like, after this game ships, I'm out of here. And 6 months later, I handed in my multiple phones. I handed in my letter of resignation, and and that was it. And I wasn't
Yeah.
even going to do this. That is the turning point. Then what happened after that? What happened after that was the Activision acquisition. Now Blizzard's on there at the time on the board of directors, not later. And then, of course, things just started to change. And on one hand, so the strategy changed. You're no longer a boutique company. We're going to be the Amazon.com of games. We're going to be the Costco of wholesale.
Yep.
So the whole strategy shifted from boutique, high-end developer who can do no wrong, who just makes stuff that everybody loves, to let's make as much money as possible at scale. And it worked. You have to have a different set of values for that. And part of that are the values that happened in that meeting. I'm not saying that these are mistakes, because they obviously made people a ton of money, but they're not what I want to do. And they're not what I felt it was a betrayal of Blizzard values.
Right.
So I vehemently disagreed with the new strategy. And I don't even think they saw it coming, that they were changing their strategy. I said, this is different. So that's when I knew it changed.
It's interesting to me anyway. It's probably not interesting to anybody else, but screw it. You're on my show. I was watching just yesterday. YouTube's algorithm fed me a speech because it knew we were going to have this chat. So it fed me a speech by the King's Academy High School valedictorian last year. And his speech was why I regret being valedictorian. And so he starts off with very boring traditional valedictorian speech, thanking everybody for all the work that none of them actually did. Thanking their parents for paying a bunch of money to send them to a private elite school, all that stuff. But then he gets to the point where he's like, so I heard I was in the running for valedictorian and then I wanted it. So I worked my butt off, I sacrificed and I got it. And I did it and it was great for 15 minutes. It was great. And then in minute 16, it wasn't great anymore. And he's like, I didn't know what was supposed to happen or what I thought would happen, but I thought it would be more than just getting this award and getting a 5-minute speech. And he's like, and then I thought about it and I thought about all the things that I gave up. And what I gave up were my personal relationships. I had to sacrifice them and I wasn't there for my friends and I didn't spend enough time with my family and I didn't do this and it wasn't worth it. And he goes through and he talks about that. And the interesting thing he goes through and he's like, the fortunate thing for me is I learned this now when I only spent a year doing it. But what if I were 50? What if I were 60 years old and I found out I had spent my whole life doing that? And he says, so don't compromise. And he said a bunch of stuff, but the thing that resonated with what you just said was don't compromise your value in the pursuit, your personal values in the pursuit of money. Because, that money will be less important than the relationships that you shed and the people that you've shunned and lost along the way. And I think it's a really interesting truth coming out of a high schooler, because high schoolers are universally idiots until they prove otherwise. And coming from a former high schooler, I'm not accepting myself from that. But it was it's interesting because that's exactly what you're saying is Blizzard had a culture, they developed a culture, and that culture didn't just exist inside the offices of Blizzard. I mean, I was playing EverQuest and heavily following the lead guilds on EverQuest as they were chewing through content while WoW was in development. And you guys eventually hired a lot of those guys to come onto the team. And there was such a culture of Blizzard will do WoW right. Blizzard will do MMOs right. They will make none of the mistakes that Sony made because Blizzard is exactly what you were talking about. They're a boutique company. They didn't use the word boutique because this was, gamers or whatever. They were just talking about that Blizzard was a culture that was different than every other gaming company. But I don't think anybody thinks that anymore. And Blizzard has lost that for whatever. I mean, they traded it in for massive bags of money, but they were already making a lot of money at points. I mean, obviously, when they were doing these layoffs, it was a hard time. But WoW was about to take off in a way that that was very, very successful.
I thought it was premature. I was like, let this product launch, and then decide. And but it's not like Blizzard was cash starved. We were part of a gigantic corporation at the time called Vivendi, Vivendi Universal. Right? Universal Studios was there. Our company meetings were at Universal Studios. We were pitching movies in the boardrooms of Universal Studios. We were a gigantic company. This was a very EA style decision, and it was, and it's not even like we had a huge team. We had 60 people on WoW. That's like now team sizes are 250, 500 for large MMOs or large AAA products. The values that Blizzard grew up with changed. And they were very successfully changed. I cannot deny that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you lose something in the process. That's always true. And so, I'm on Twitter, and occasionally you'll see me tweet. It's like, hey, share your love with everyone around you, because that's the most important thing. You're talking about the valedictorians, like, hey, all this time I could have spent with my relationships and everything else. I sacrificed that. It's like, well, I didn't want to do that with my kids. I didn't want to do that with my family. I want to share the love. And so I don't want to get big. It's like, hey, what do I have to prove anymore? I don't have to prove anything. I want to transform MMOs. I want to bring us to a place that we were headed to before, until we made World of Warcraft, and then everybody who was experimenting in the space said, we just got to copy WoW. And that is so wrong.
And
that is so wrong.
I hate it. I never played WoW. And I hate what WoW has done to MMOs, because it made them so fast that now, like, that old experience of EverQuest and Asheron's Call is impossible to get. But I mean, the amount of reward that you got at every stage of leveling up in early EverQuest was something I can't even put into words. Maxing out the level of your character was not an expected outcome at the time. Like, you might not ever make it to level 50.
Yes.
And it's crazy to think of now, like, oh, you're going to start an MMO with a level cap of 70 and you're not going to make it to 70 at the end of like 3 weeks. What kind of crap game is this? But EverQuest was designed in a way where you never had to make it that far. There was stuff to do at every level. And I mean, other MMOs pay head service to that, but or lip service to that, but which is the same thing. That was a joke. No, but they do it, but it's not the same thing. You cannot have a game where you're literally going to spend 3 weeks at the same level, because people won't play it anymore, and that, I think, is WoW's fault. Well,
we deliberately compressed it. We knew that we wanted to give you, back then we knew that we said that you had to feel like you accomplished something in 30 minutes. Now, with mobile games, you got to feel like you accomplished something in 5 minutes. And
I hate that even more.
But these don't have to be the types of experiences, or even the focus of an MMO, right? Like I was tweeting recently, I was tweeting some stuff about MMOs, saying that it doesn't have to be like WoW. It doesn't have to be this. And someone tweeted about, well, players are always going to min-max their classes. You can never get rid of that. And I was like, I'm not talking about getting rid of min-maxing, but why are you talking about classes? Why are you talking about traditional fantasy RPG mechanics? Why can't there be something else that's the goal that people are min-maxing for? And one of the things that another follower mentioned, and I have to mention that my followers are great fonts of inspiration, right? And they're also some of the biggest trolls sometimes. But I wouldn't trade it for the world, because interacting with gamers directly makes me a gamer again. I definitely had that sense of ivory tower stuff building during the WoW phase, the height of the WoW phase. And I'm so glad that I'm in touch with everybody again. But somebody said that well, when WoW was popular, you didn't have social media. You didn't have, Facebook was nascent. You had MySpace. MySpace was nascent. Twitter was nascent.
Mhm.
And this is a very good point. MMOs were the social network. They
Very
were
much.
the people together. But that is the very thing that they have thrown away. You can find MMO mechanics in any game you play today. You can play any single player shooter. It's got RPG mechanics in it. You can
Yep.
play any game you can think of has some aspect of MMO stuff. And the MMOs, but what they don't have that the MMOs had was the social connection. And MMOs threw that away. They kept going after these mechanics that are now in every game, and they threw away the one thing that made them really special and unique and different, which was the social network aspect.
Yep.
That has to be built back into MMOs from the ground up. Even chat systems are so fucking primitive in MMOs. Compared to something like Discord, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that they can't take two programmers and 2 years and knock out something really fantastic for chat that helps the social network part of it, right? And bringing people together like Discord does. It's I'm not saying that Discord's a perfect model for MMO chat. I'm just bringing up as an example of something that's under researched and under pursued because they're just trying to pursue these other games. This is why people think Genshin Impact is an MMO, because it's got MMO mechanics in it, and nobody can tell the fucking difference because everything is so instance to hell in MMOs that they only ever see themselves and maybe 4 other people.
Yeah,
So it might as well be Genshin Impact.
I hate instancing. I think it's lame. I remember competing for spawns, and that was high tension, but it was also like, it was that human interaction. Like, you have to maybe negotiate with someone else, or you have to work out a schedule, or you have to do something. You have to come to some sort of rule. You have to roll dice to figure out who gets a stupid spawn camp, because it's going to be 7 freaking days before the one monster comes back. Like that. And I just can't even picture an MMO today doing something like that, where there was literally, for the entire server, one spawn for a period of a week. And it's a critical spawn for like a major quest that every cleric has to do, for example. They'll never get that back. But that was the social aspect of it. When you didn't have instances, when your interactions on the server mattered, because once you got to a certain point, your reputation actually did precede you. People would know if you were a guy who fucked people over in groups or whatever. That would get around. And so it almost enforced this behavioral policy, just the same way that living in the world does, is that you can be a dick in limited capacity, but most people can't be a dick forever, or too big of a dick. You have to eventually fit in if you want to accomplish your goals. And that's an interesting thing. It is completely gone from MMOs.
And it's the reason why MMOs are not succeeding as well as they hoped, because they didn't understand that. And even Mike Morhaime, after he left Blizzard, admitted that the losing the social component and over casualization of WoW, which really is about solo play, all right, and letting everyone succeed at doing everything,
right.
And he admitted that it creates a sort of machine that needs to keep feeding itself with content drops and a lot of other things that go wrong that inevitably lose your player base anyways, or takes a lot of effort to maintain and grow. But instancing, I tweeted out, I said instancing was a mistake. And oh boy, did not get a lot of likes.
No.
People are like, dude, I don't have time to spawn camp a boss. And I'm like, you're not thinking big enough. I'm not saying that we should get rid of instancing and bring back what you were describing, spawn capping a boss and everyone lining up and dice rolling and then arguments breaking out. Although there are aspects to that that are definitely cool and have emergent social gameplay. Why do we have to structure it around single bosses spawning? What I'm doing, what I started with when experimenting in Firefall and what I'm doing with Ember is I have a AI dungeon master that is there to entertain you and craft experiences for you. That was the ultimate goal for Firefall, was that the entertainment would come to you wherever you were. So it wasn't location based. Okay, MMO design, very, very location based.
Right.
Firefall and Ember work in the basis of time, which is much more friendly, and asynchronous goals for guilds. I could talk more specifics at another time, but it's like, my point was, it's like you're still thinking in the MMO terms. When I say get rid of instancing, you're going to be like, well, you're going to have all these problems. It's like, don't design those encounters that way.
Right.
Do something different. And you can. There are options out there. And we have experimented with this. We had great success with thumper mining events and auto grouping, so that if you drop a mining thumper and you start mining for resources and defending it against waves of enemies that are coming along, anybody who passed by was instantly part of that group. Anybody who passed by was instantly sharing in it based on their contribution. There's different things we can do, folks, but it's been pounded into your head that an MMO has to have raids, that it has to have these types of world boss encounters, that it has to be on the basis of location rather than another dimension like time, that opens up a lot of gameplay opportunities and lets you bring back some of those social elements with things like asynchronous guild goals and things like this that can form those social bonds in a modern time where we have less time to play. And we should bring the social network back in. We should own it. MMO should own it. And gosh, this is so deep. But during the time
keep going.
COVID,
I love it.
During the time of COVID, virtual worlds have never been more important for connecting people. We can't just rely on tweets. Twitter is a piece of ancient technology based on SMS text messaging limitations of 144 characters, and we still think of it as the bastion of high-tech political communication, right? No, it's got to come back to MMOs. It's got to come back to virtual worlds in some way, and it has to come back with shared experiences. Because what can social media not do for you? It can bring groups of like-minded people together. But what an MMO can do is give you an entirely new world to talk about and bring you together around that. And, that's Twitter is a vacuum. There is no content on vacuum. That can't happen on Twitter. It can happen in MMO. And I will tell you that that's going to bring together far more people and help fight this tribalism we're seeing that's algorithmically driven right now to increase our attention and traffic. And there's two frontiers for the future, and Elon's got one. He's going to space. He's going to Mars, right?
Yeah.
And he said, I don't care about when no country can lay claim. I'm going to go and do my BioShock thing on Mars, right? and the other place this is going to happen is in the digital realm. We are going to eventually, we're going to hit the singularity. Ray Kurzweil, right?
Right.
Ray Kurzweil's singularity. Everyone's going to upload. So there's two things that are going to guarantee the survival of the human race. One is we spread through space, so we diversify our risks. Earth gets hit by an asteroid, we're okay. We've got other colonies. The other way we're going to do it is by leaving our physical bodies behind and going into virtual spaces. And to me, this is not a retreat. To me, this is an expansion of consciousness that could happen at a level that can't happen in the real world because we're still tied to our physical bodies, because we're still tied to our physical mental processes. And this is why, I diverge from many people on my feed about things like gender, right? I absolutely think gender is a meaningless concept when you talk about the singularity, because it's not going to matter. The biological part is not going to matter eventually. So we might as well start making steps toward this. And that's a very unpopular opinion with my followers, but there it is, Well,
in the context of the digital world, gender hasn't mattered forever. The mantra
Yeah.
The mantra on EverQuest was there are no girls on EverQuest. Like there just aren't any. All of the female characters were dudes. I mean, I know there were some. I met a few who were actually female, but you know, a lot of female players were also men, and it. But at the same time, in the role play aspect, it just didn't matter, right?
It just doesn't matter, and you can be who you want, and you can take on gender aspects that you want. I mean, I had a dude propose to me in EverQuest.
Look, I'll cyber with anyone for 20 platinum. That's all I'm saying.
Oh my god, the letdown was horrible though. It's like, hey, dude, because I was role playing, right? Because he proposed to me in public.
Yeah.
And oh god, I hope he's not listening right now.
What
he's
server?
Gonna live the shame all over again.
What server did you play on?
You know, I don't remember. I can't.
Oh, come on.
No,
you gotta remember.
I can't. I don't.
Were you in a guild?
We had a Blizzard guild going, so I was in that guild.
But okay, sure.
We weren't like a hardcore one. But yeah, this guy proposed to me in public, and I was like, well, I don't want to embarrass him, so I'm just going to role play. And I was like, hey, I'm really happy. Thanks for. And he'd been giving me fat loot for weeks, right? He was completely simping for me.
Oh, this is great.
and I was very accepting of the gear, and I was very grateful and everything else. But
oh man, you were an e-girl before it was cool.
And then like a week later, I said, I don't think he knows I'm role playing. Doesn't he know that everybody's a guy here? And like, so I was like,
oh, hey. Sorry, Grok Chan, I'm already spoken for.
I sent him a message like, dude, you know, I'm happy to role play this to a certain degree, but you do know it's role play, right? You do know that I'm actually a software executive.
Look, I'm a get, but I'm not into you.
And then there was this long silence, right? This is all through text. So I texted, it's like, hey, you know, I'm a guy, right? And hey, if you want to role play this, and that's fine, but you know, past a certain point, I'm uncomfortable with it. But you got to know this, right? Minutes go by, 15 minutes goes by, and this is a guy who just couldn't stop talking to me, right? While he was simping, and I knew that. Was the reply, and I was like, oh no.
Oh, you ruined him. You ruined him.
And he didn't know. And you know,
learned at that point what every high school girl has gone through. It was great.
Yeah, that was an amazing reversal of experience, right? And I felt so bad. But there was a tragedy in Blizzard regarding around this. What do they call it now? Catfishing, right?
Yeah.
So you know, we had a security breach of features and dates that were released about World of Warcraft, and we traced it back to one of our guys in QA. Nice guy, right?
Yeah.
But there was someone, and we don't know if it was male or female, but who was pretending to be interested in him.
It was a dark elf, wasn't it? It was always a dark elf chick. Every time it's a dark elf chick, I know.
I don't even remember. But I mean, and he tried to get out of it, right? He kept getting sucked into it more and more, and she had this sob story about, you know, her family and everything else. It was very compelling. And then as soon as he tried to break it off or anything, he said, I can't tell you any more information or anything like that. He, whoever it was, we were pretty sure it was someone catfishing, said, well, now I'm suicidal.
No, of course. Yep.
And this poor guy, we had him in the office, and we said, we know the leak came from you. And he just broke down in tears. And I had nothing but sympathy for the guy.
Sympathy.
You know? It was really a tragedy. You know, this guy had risked his job and everything else, and you know, and we didn't fire him because it's like, okay, you made a big mistake. you just got catfished, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're not going to do anything because obviously you knew it was wrong and everything else, but this was very serious. You leaked out company information and everything else for but wow, how do we get on this topic? Anyways,
The liquor.
but it was really tragic, and I felt and that was like, wow, that really hit home. The other guy that that proposed to me, whatever, that's funny, right? But this thing was like, it almost cost him his job. And
it's funny now. It wasn't funny at the time, but it is funny now.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's probably the CEO of some company now, so
yeah.
or he's built a simp empire somewhere. Or lessons of simping and created the ultimate cat.
Now he is the catfish.
Yeah.
Oh, so yeah,
we can laugh at it now, and we can laugh at it because we didn't fire the guy, right?
Like, no.
We had empathy as a company back then.
That's gone. We've coded that out now. That's gone.
Go on.
Okay, I got On Your Knees V says, damn it, Rackets. First non-election stream you've had in a while, and it goes straight into the social and political consequences of said election. Quick, ask Mark about the large-breasted waifus fighting massive kaijus and his future projects.
Wait, he says, okay, you advertised it as a political chat. It was going to be
I know.
Not big titty, big tech.
Look, they can be the same. Okay, I do have a question for you, and this one's personal. This is people in the chat have asked, but I've wanted to know for a while. Can you dish on this? Was StarCraft originally a Warhammer 40K game? Because that's the big speculation.
Legally, I can neither confirm or deny.
Ah, damn it. So it definitely was. Okay, Ghost of GG says, this has been talked about for years. Anger is the most profitable emotion. Women predominantly use social media and share when something makes them angry. Men predominantly share when something makes them laugh or is interesting, which makes advertisers. I think his thought got cut off there. But I don't know if it's actually relegated between men and women like that, because I know a bunch of dudes who only angry post.
I agree and I don't agree. Yeah, but I agree that anger drives it, and I pointed this out at Twitter. I said, hey, by having block lists and stuff, you're actually reducing the reason why people are on there. But what I failed to anticipate was the algorithmic manipulation that while you are in your bubble, they can even more effectively make you angry at each other because you can't hear each other anymore.
Yep.
You can't talk.
It's nasty. The block list is really I call it a blockchain, even though it's not a blockchain, but it's the software where you pick a person and it blocks all of their followers. That is one of the nastiest things that exists, in my opinion. Are you familiar with this?
Dude, I was one of the very first block lists out there, and not only that, someone, I think it was someone created a block list that how did it work? It's like basically anyone who followed me was immediately put on a block list too. So using the Twitter API. Yeah. So yeah, it was crazy back then. I said, listen, this is a horrible thing. But I was wrong. I thought that they wouldn't be able to find a way to get people mad at each other enough to grow the user base. But they totally can. And it's because back then there weren't algorithms. They were very nascent at the time. It was manual moderation, even,
well, the worst part is
they found a way to increase it. And I think putting people in bubbles increases it. Like it's weird. I started off as a centrist on Twitter, and then I got shoved all the way to the right because I wasn't left enough. Mm-hmm. And then now I'm finding myself back more in the center. I actually have leftist viewpoints. I actually have conservative viewpoints. And I'm starting to realize that now. It's like, I can kind of see their point. I may not agree with the way they're going about it, but I can kind of see their point. And that is that's not happening to people. People are being told what to think.
Well,
Um,
the worst part about the blacklist thing and why it foments more rage even towards the person who's blocked is that okay, you've got a block list that where you block all of their followers or whatever, and you block them, and then people will still talk behind that block list, right? They'll still talk about the person, but that person, unless they're actively monitoring people who have blocked them, has no way to respond and interject. And even when they do, it's not going to be seen. So they don't have the opportunity to change someone's mind at that point. They don't have the opportunity, or for someone like you who might hold positions on the right and the left, as you just said. I mean, me too. Like most people have positions that are both right
I
and
think
left.
most people are actually like that, and
Yeah.
it's a myth. It's boxes that we've been pushed into by both sides,
Right.
And I'm not saying that conservatives are saying toe the line or else, because that's definitely not their mantra. But the way that the social media bubble works is that we are being assigned our conservative opinions, as Scott Adams likes to say. You are assigned your opinion, and we have to recognize that that's happening equally on the right as it is on the left, just through different mechanisms, and mechanisms controlled by the left. Interestingly enough,
Right. But the problem with with blocking in general, and specifically blocking vast swaths of people, is you never get exposed to that other side of the person. You never get the opportunity to see those views that do align with yours and go, oh, we disagree about this thing, but everything else we're fine. And that's the human interaction that we can't block out, because we're not quite at that episode of Black Mirror yet, where the implant actually blocks people. But that's, in day-to-day interaction, you're forced to confront all the things that you don't actually hate the other person for. But on social media, and I think that's going into what you were saying, is when you do form those bubbles, it then becomes an echo chamber of anger, and it amplifies it and exponentially increases it, because they never hear someone that they agree with on everything else offer a competing view on the thing that they're talking about.
So what the algorithm promotes is you cannot so imagine that these bubbles on Twitter are metaverses in the universe, right? The membranes of different parallel universes that we all live in. And there's a leftist universe and there's a rightist universe. And
Right.
The only time that those bubbles get permeated through these are through the wormholes of the algorithms that are designed to feed you the thing that makes you the angriest. Mm-hmm. So you never see all the moderate talking points. You never see the non-extreme opinions, or that and it's it is frightening to see this. It is frightening to sit back and observe it, and then it is even scarier to realize why they're doing it.
Right.
Which we talked about earlier. It's like it's no longer about selling you ads and products. They've got plenty of money. Yep. It's about power. It's about maintaining power. It's about what Adam Scrabble on Twitter, who's brilliant, by the way, and everyone should run and subscribe to Adam Scrabble.
Who the hell's Adam Scrabble?
So he's the guy who said this is the fastest roll up of power in history, and and he's very well connected politically. He used to know all the lobbyists. He's founded and invested in many large corporations, like payroll companies, everything else, and he's sitting back and he's talking about how the elites are using COVID and as the sort of exact moment in time to play their hand, and that's what you're seeing now. And there's no resistance, and it is so effective, and it is so out in the open and brazen and so fast. So much has happened just in the past year, and he keeps a log. He keeps a diary of everything that he's been talking about, and now he's starting to do podcasts too, and he's got some great guests on there too. And and he's in, and I used to, because we DM, and I'll be like, Adam, come on, like, is this really a high level thing going on? And like I said, it doesn't have to be a conspiracy. Everyone's talking about the Great Reset now, right? The Great Reset doesn't have to be a conspiracy. It can just be kind of a cool idea that everyone's sort of naturally incentivized to follow.
Right.
And it's like, hey, we want to make Star Trek. That's what I call it. The Great Reset is we want the Star Trek future, right?
Right. We want to be a bunch of space commies.
Yeah.
we're like
currency. The Federation space commies. I never given that much thought.
Dude, yeah, they don't have an income. Everybody just has a rank, because everything is just available by replicator and provided by whatever. So they just fly around in their little Iron Curtain ships, and they have all sorts of regulations on speech and behavior, because it's basically a military superstructure that everybody lives under. Yeah, they're just giant space commies. But it's only the good aspects of space commieism that comes through.
So here's what I posit, since we're using, I think that what people like me think is like, oh no, we're headed towards Cyberpunk 2077, right? We're headed towards dystopia without all the cool shit. And other people that are really pushing the I hate to use the term globalist agenda and everything else, because again, I think most conspiracy theories are really just a set of incentives around what people think are a good idea that drive towards a common goal. So it's Star Trek. They think they're creating Star Trek, when what I see is that they're creating Cyberpunk 2077, right?
Right.
And
because we don't have a replicator, and we don't have faster than light travel to infinite worlds with unlimited resources. We don't have that. We have finite resources stuck on the earth. And so
that's exactly the way I feel about it. It's like, we're not ready for Star Trek. We don't have the right technologies in place yet. And if you try to force it, you tip into authoritarianism and starvation and everything that comes along with when you don't have replicators and you try to impose this sort of stuff.
Who they never talk about in Star Trek? The one communist guy on the bottom rung who has to clean up the holodeck. Because there's that guy has to exist.
Oh no.
That guy does exist. There's someone who has to go in there with a mop. And
that guy is every day. He just wishes he was a red shirt, because that would be better.
Yeah. Please let me be on the next landing mission. I don't want to come back. I like the Spike Man says, when is the Iron Mouse Project Mel? Mel is 69% right wing and Mousy can be bent. We need V nationalists. Also, Hirohei had a rough vid about China today. Don't know if you saw it. I don't know what anything in that chat meant except for Hirohei. Hirohei's great. But other than that, I don't know what you're trying. Hirohei is a YouTuber. He's a friend of mine. He covers anime news, basically.
Okay.
His channel blew up. He's like 300,000 subscribers. He's crazy. He's good stuff though. He's a good boy from LA. You'd probably like him because he's got all the anime navel in the world. No, I'm just kidding. James Streisand says, speaking of alternatives, Nick, your interviews got me into comics and helped me write my own. Check out Eyes of the Forest issue 1, pre-launched on Indiegogo for an early bird reward. I'll be sending all of it to you, Nick. Cheers, buddy. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Guys, check out Eyes of the Forest. Wait a minute. I inspired you to write a comic and I haven't even written one yet? That's embarrassing for me. Every game played says this C.S. Lewis quote most aptly defines how these companies act. Of all tyrannies, a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive. And that's what we were talking about with Facebook and Twitter and big tech in general, is that they're not necessarily out there to do harm. In their minds, of course, they're out there to do good, which is that's maybe the scariest thing, is that their version of good, when it conflicts with your version of good, we have a fundamental loss of liberty.
But when you talk about the Zuckerbergs, right? When you talk about the handful of people, there's an issue while it's not evil, there is certainly a contempt. And there is certainly a contempt that people cannot self-govern, that people will never, that what is it they say about capitalism, that people, or democracies, is that people vote for the largesse, so that that ultimately brings the whole system down.
Right.
Um, so you know, unfortunately, I think there is a contempt there that for everyday people, and you, me, everyone who's not a multi-mega billionaire, um, that is very
I
dangerous.
wanna be though. Like, don't hate me. Just help me be a multi-mega billionaire. Then you can like me all you want. That's where I want to be.
Are you going to be a billionaire? Like, okay. I mean, Notch is a billionaire, right?
I'm going to be a billionaire like every rapper says they're going to be a billionaire, which means I won't ever, because I understand the economics of my business, unlike those rappers. Yeah,
But
Notch, he pulled the rabbit out of the hat with Minecraft, of course, and
yep.
He struck it huge. So yeah, he's a billionaire, and he's the kind of billionaire I like, because he's realized that he can just say whatever the hell he wants for the rest of his life, and it's great.
And he has all the MMMs and M&Ms he wants. So yeah, I mean, he's not. He's decided not to be politically active. Here's what happens when you get rich, or when you succeed, and when you hit that goal. It's very important, and this is talked about amongst CEOs and things. It's very important to line up your purpose after that, because there is not many people know this. There is, when you succeed at such a huge goal, whatever it is, and maybe it's like the valedictorian moment, right?
Right.
You suddenly don't have a purpose afterwards.
It's the Flappy Bird guy.
I remember him. Yeah.
He shut down Flappy Bird. He was making like 50 grand a day. Mm-hmm. And he's like, no, it was too much. I didn't know what to do anymore. And he shut it down. But it's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And so, oftentimes what CEOs are coached on is, hey, you're going to hit this. You're obviously driven, but you need a purpose other than success and money. And so this is what happens. After you get success and money, now you turn your attention to world problems. How can I, and maybe there's a sense of guilt too, right? So a lot of people, when they succeed, they don't feel like there's immense sort of imposter syndrome sometimes with successful CEOs. Mm-hmm. And where you achieve it, and then you're like, I didn't really deserve it, or this is way too much money, and then you really have a problem. And so I think what's happening with the Zuckerbergs of the world is exactly what you said. It's not about making money anymore. It's about, for them to be alive, for them to, have a survival instinct, and to go out there and want to live, rather than, just, disappear because you've done everything you need to do and there's no point anymore. You need a purpose. And so what has happened is Silicon Valley CEOs, very successful people, they want to do that good in the world. That's why you're seeing it so much, and they're in a position to do it.
Can we co-opt all of the coaches to the Silicon Valley people and get them to coach them that they need to reconnect with their starting origins, and all go be janitors at like a Dairy Queen or whatever, instead of trying to change them? Like, you need to relearn the value of hard work and a rough schedule. Go be a manager of a Dairy Queen with your billions of dollars, since you don't need the income. And please stop trying to change society.
I think that's a really great idea. I think every CEO who sells their company, or is successful, or has a smash product or whatever, needs to reconnect. And that happened to me too. I told you I was feeling like I was in an ivory tower of game design.
Yeah.
I'm always talking to my peers and my fellow developers about what would be cool. And I I didn't really until Twitter and until, I started connecting with people there and I talk to people on Twitter and I'll answer people and I'll take DMs and I answer DMs. I mean, this is crazy, right?
Right. You come on
and
weirdo shows in the middle of the night.
I come on weirdo shows in the middle of the night and I take questions from people who say words I don't understand, and and it really reconnected me as a gamer. And then when politics came out, and and I had a very viral tweet that said, hey, I was a Democrat and here's how you get my vote back. And it's like, and I said, reconnect with middle America, reconnect with, and I was always raised, I was always taught, that, the only difference between me and the gardener was my opportunities and what I made of them. Right.
Mhm.
And either you don't have the opportunities, so you never get the chance, or you didn't make use of them when the opportunities came along.
Right.
But he said, other than that, you're the same. You're absolutely the same. And so I've always had that sort of humility, and especially and I have that even in service. When I work a service industry job, like I'm in college and I'm a room RA and I'm helping people out, it's like, I don't know. I just have a different mentality about it because maybe the way I was raised, but that's important. Go out and talk. Zuckerberg tried though. Didn't he go on like a nationwide tour to talk to the people? Do you remember that?
Well, the problem with that though is that he's not human.
The pictures. Oh my God, the pictures kill me of this progression.
His have you seen the one with his
How did he lose his eyebrows?
What's the okay? You have to know the term for this because you're a mecha person. What is it when you have the backwards knees?
Digitrade.
What's it called?
Digitrade.
Digitrade. So that's when the knees go the opposite way, like a. Yeah. Have you seen the pictures of him walking with the Digitrade knees?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God, I'm going to find him while we're on the stream. These, you won't believe this. Mark Zuckerberg legs. That's all I'm going to type in. There it is. First result. Hold on, I'm pulling it up. I'm going to share screen with you. Just a second. All right. This is never going to make me not laugh. Okay, where is it? That's not it. Present a window. This one. Go.
Well, I heard a very pleasing beep, but where is the?
It should be there now. It should be in your window. Can you see it?
I think I minimized you, dude.
Don't minimize me. Maximize me.
Window. Where's my window?
It's the one that says meat on it.
Oh, I see the text window. Where freaking I had the window.
Well, it's now got a picture of Zuckerberg on it, so you won't see me anymore. You'll see a picture of Mark Zuckerberg. You have to still have the window because we're still talking.
I don't have the window.
It's impossible.
You do a Google Meet. Never mind. I'm having a boomer moment. I don't use Google products. Do you know why?
Because you hate Google.
I hate Google. It's like we have to choose our corporate overlords. This is what I talk about now, right? It's like it's not governments. You're going to have to choose a company that you're allegiance to. And so I've stopped using Google for almost everything. And now here you have me in a Hangout, and I have no idea how to use it.
Well, next time I will do StreamYard, and it will be worse but better at the same time.
All right. Well, I'll just trust you on the legs. But
so you still haven't found it yet?
Well, I stopped looking because I was looking for your window.
Here, I'll stop presenting, and you have to see this. I'll stop presenting.
No, I just pulled it up. Oh, I see it. How does that happen? Wow.
Because Mark is no longer. Mark's not a person anymore. I know how this happened. Mark was sitting at his computer. I don't know the year, but it was not too long ago. He was human for a while, but he's sitting at his computer and he's just working on algorithms on Facebook, and then all of a sudden, the USB cables to his computer come sentient, wrap around his neck, and kill him outright. And then the 3D printer in his room starts printing an exoskeleton or an endoskeleton furiously, right? And then the USB cables slice open the back of Mark's skin, and they pull out his innards, and they replace it with this 3D printed flimsy skeleton, which then plugs itself directly into the Facebook API. And now Mark has gone full digital. And so he's just a husk now, controlled by Facebook entirely. And the reason he looks like a horrific lizard creature now is because it's a combination of his skin and cells dying and decaying, and also a spray of preservatives that he walks through every day before going outside.
Wow.
This is true. And you have it on the same authority as all of Trump's lawyers have on the election fraud.
So, all right. So, which evil company are you going to swear fealty to next year? That's what I want to know. I ask everyone this question.
For me, right now it's Google. Because I use Google Fi cell phone service. But I'll die before I swear fealty to Jack or Zuck. And I don't remember the Google CEO's name. Microsoft could win my allegiance, though, if they could put out a competent phone.
Yeah,
they're
all bad. They're all evil.
I have a Duo, and I kind of like it, but it needs work.
I like Microsoft Surface tablets, but they need work too. So
yeah.
Microsoft, I don't think they're big enough anymore. They used to be.
They can be. Sanjay, is his name Sanjay? Is that the guy? What's his?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that guy. He can do it. He can do it. He turned him around. The other guy just wanted to buy a basketball team, and he left Ballmer.
Ballmer.
He was useless. He's like, I just need a couple billion to buy a basketball team, and then I'm out of here. Sanjay, that guy can do it. I believe in him. I believe in him.
I haven't picked my company yet. I said I would pick Nintendo, but they're not big enough. You know, they
do the thing. Did you see what they did the other day to Twitch?
No, what'd they do?
They don't understand time zones. So one of their games released, and it released first in Australia ahead of Japan because of time zones. And so then it was Hyrule Warriors, I think. And so guys were going on Twitch, like Australians and New Zealanders or whatever, going on Twitch, and they're streaming Hyrule Warriors. Nintendo goes in and strikes all of these channels and says they're streaming it too early. It hasn't been released yet. They must have stolen it. Like, you idiots. It's your release schedule. But they do this.
I believe it. I mean, Nintendo early on didn't want their games streamed at all.
Yeah.
And they tried to take everybody down. But you know, every corporation is bad in many ways. But you're gonna have to pick. So you pick Google, which has everyone's information.
For now, I'm gonna change teams to Microsoft though when I get a chance.
I'm like, kind of. Okay. If Microsoft gets stronger, you'll switch to Microsoft.
If they step up. It's like I'm like James
Caan.
A
keylogger in every version of Windows 10. It's okay. It's just
look. I'm like James Caan in Rollerball, and I am the star player. I'm just looking for the right team, and Microsoft is the corporation. They can depends on what city they run.
Well, I figured out what it's going to be for me because I was like, is it? It's definitely not going to be Facebook or Twitter. I have such a beef with that.
Yeah.
The topic, bringing it back to the topic with Big Tech Censorship. And I said, so what's it going to be? I mean, maybe Apple because they make cool shit, but then, they're exploiting labor and everything else. And it's like, no, it's not going to be Apple. And then I realized it's like, you know what? It's going to be any company that's serious about space. So it's going to be
Amazon. Or Tesla.
It's going to be Amazon. It's going to be Tesla, and Amazon does a lot of shitty stuff too, and I'm sure Tesla has dirt somewhere too. But
no, Tesla,
because I want off this planet.
I'll tell you what Tesla's dirt is. All of the dead hookers are stuffed in that Tesla that's orbiting the Earth.
Oh no.
So you don't have to worry about it. That's their evil, and it's really bad, but it's concentrated into one small Tesla vehicle that's orbiting the Earth, and no one will
Don't
ever find out.
evil. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I because I think that, like I said, there are two major realms of post-human, what do they call it? Is it post-humanism?
I think so.
And it's going to be going into space and then going into the digital realm. Elon Musk has got space covered. Amazon's going to be there. Boeing's going to be there. Space Force is going to be there. This is going to happen, and there will be colonies on Mars, and my kids are probably going to live there if they want to, and the other realm is the realm of the digital, and people don't see this yet, but there are companies positioning themselves to own the digital realm, the upload realm, the singularity, and Facebook is one of them. That's why they're interested in Oculus. That's why they're interested in all these tools.
Mm-hmm.
They want to create a metaverse, and they understand that what MMOs are missing is the social network impact, and but they don't know games, and so they're struggling horribly because they don't have the right fusion. And the other one is Epic. Epic is very quietly going around and purchasing all the technology needed, all the companies that you need for a metaverse, but their version of the metaverse, and Tim Sweeney talks about this openly. Tim Sweeney talks about the challenges of, programming for the metaverse where anything can happen, to do a Ready Player One type of thing. But I think Epic lacks imagination. They think that the metaverse is going to be digitally realistic humans that look just like you. And I think that the metaverse is going to be something completely different. I mean, look at VR chat. That's the metaverse.
Do you think it's gonna? It's gonna look like Ready Player One?
No, it's going to be wall-to-wall furries. That's what it's going to be.
A bunch of Ugandan knuckles running around.
That's it. It's going to be wall-to-wall furries because nobody wants to be human. It is a mistake to think that the metaverse that we're going to go into is going to be human based. I think it's going to be dramatically different. And I think you can look at the success of VR chat and people being everything except who they really are in real life to see that. And so meanwhile, Epic is buying companies that specialize in photorealistic digital human simulation, extensive hand and face tracking and things like this. And it's the wrong approach. It's fundamentally the wrong approach. It's about transhumanism. It's about being something different. And there's a series of books that's science fiction books I found really interesting. There's a book called The Quantum Thief. Has anybody read that?
Quantum Thief. I have not heard of it. But I'm interested. Do you know Ready Player 2 was released today?
Oh, it was?
I believe so.
I talked to Ernest Klein. He's a big WoW fan, so we had a great convo back when his book first launched to success. And I had no idea because I didn't like the sequel, his Moonbase one.
Oh wait, no, it launches now, the 24th. So it just launched. It's out now. Oh. You can buy it on Kindle, hardcover, paperback. The hardcover is $18. The paperback is $27.90. I don't know what the hell's up with that. But
it's not going to be Ready Player One either, and I think that's what people are chasing, and they're just wrong. I mean, that can be a stepping stone to it, but it's just not its final form. But if you read books by this author, Hanu Rajanini, I'd probably butcher that name, Hanu Rajanini.
I'm going to bet on you butchering that name.
Called The Quantum Thief, which is the Jean Leflambleur book series, and they talk about how societies, evolved into different ways into singularity. And one of the most powerful factions in the book is a bunch of gamers, which is why I love it. They're like guilds, right? And then
it's Japan.
And they become with the early Japan Industrial Revolution. I mean,
no, it's like Japan now, not necessarily gamers, but just like these, the sort of upper class of Japan is like this uh, range of, I don't know, guys, right? And this is why Japan has such a sort of different cultural approach to sexuality than the West, is because the people who have all the money are these guys who are like 35 to 50 years old. And they all rose up in the age of anime and manga and video games. And so now that's kind of this, they have a huge impact on the culture. They're a powerful force. Whereas in the West, we haven't had that yet. We're trailing. We're getting there, but we're trailing behind them on that.
Okay.
Is
But
at least a theory. I don't know.
anyways, I think that, the digital realm is going to be very abstract. If you read The Quantum Thief, it's a hard book to start with because it's the type of book that throws at you so many abstract concepts and so many new words, you're immediately lost. But if you stick with it, I promise you, it's worth it. And then you learn that one of the most powerful factions is actually a bunch of gamers, and they exist in the digital form, and they can convert mass to energy in different ways. And their politics are kind of guild driven, which is kind of interesting too. But anyways, yeah, I think those are two things. So I don't see a mega corporation forming around the digital world stuff yet in any sort of cohesive way. I don't think it's going to be Facebook, even though they desperately want to be. I don't think it's going to be Epic because I think they're barking up the wrong tree. And then there's going to be space. And so, where I fit in is, I'm the Wright brothers going up against, I don't know if you know that, I want to create the next metaverse. I want to create starting with just pushing the MMO envelope a little bit, right? Just saying, hey, we don't have to take D&D and the EverQuest trope and say, WoW refined that, and that's the only model that was successful. No, there were all these experiments in the digital realm that we need to go back to. EVE Online, great experiment. Star Wars Galaxies, great experiment. Even PlanetSide, nascent PlanetSide 1, great experiments. We want to go back to that. So Ember kind of takes the PlanetSide formula and says it's not PvP, it's PvE now. And what can we do with that? What can we do with a dynamic moving war front? What can we do with sort of like a mass distributed sort of war where everything's player crafted and you're all fighting together and you have a common cause and you can gain and lose territory and all this sort of stuff. And, and there's no classes, there's no levels, there's nothing like this. So, I'm going to start with that. I'm going to start pushing on that. And then I'm going to really push on this metaverse stuff. The technologies we're building now, they're really going to be to service what's the next step out of this. And, and I don't have the resources of a Facebook behind me. So I literally we're trying to discover flight. It's like, the Wright brothers in their bicycle shop making the first successful airplane when you had all of these other scientists trying to do things that were well-funded, that were trying to determine the success of flight, but they didn't really get it because they didn't understand why we need the metaverse. And it's a matter of human survival. Anyways, this is getting really philosophical. So the evil corporations I choose are the ones going to space. And as soon as there's an evil corporation that seems like they're gonna, and I don't want evil corporations to own the metaverse. I want to be like James Halliday. I want to set the metaverse free, and I want to and screw the Sixers.
Right.
And that's where I'm headed. But it'll be interesting. It's going to be an interesting journey, and I'm very intrigued by that. But and that's how we're ultimately going to get to our utopia, which won't be a utopia, by the way. There'll always be conflict, and there's very interesting reasons why humanity needs conflict in order to survive. But that's I think the shape of the world and how we escape kind of where we are now. And it's going to be dismal. The next couple of years for censorship and clamping down on expression in games and everything else is just going to be absolutely dismal.
Everything's going to be, it's like movies. I don't know about you, but I watch movies on Twitch almost every night as a watch party. And I try to focus on 80s and 90s movies because I feel like that's when they had it. They had the right soul of what the movie should be, this vehicle of entertainment. And I see the same thing in gaming where you look at The Last of Us 2 and it's like they're trying to do they're trying to make games so important, and they're forgetting the whole part of like playing them and having fun.
Yep.
And movies are the same way. They're just ahead of games by a couple years. But it's like you used to be able to just have a ridiculous movie where someone ran around with a big machine gun and shot up a whole bunch of stuff, and everybody was attractive in the movie, and it was just fun. It was a frolic through sensationalism, and that was okay. You didn't have to worry about who the person he killed was, because that wasn't really a person. It's just an effect of the movie. But now games are the same way, and I think they're going to get worse over the next couple years. I really do think the major titles, they're going to try to add so much import to every single dead pixel in the game that they're going to try and make you care about it so much, because they're going to lose sight of what the game is supposed to be, which is just entertaining.
Yeah, well, here's what's happening with gaming. I had a long thread, a tweet thread about this on Twitter a couple months ago. I said, here's where gaming is going. You're going to see things like free games on demand and platforms where you can subscribe for all you can game, and the idea is to get your foot in the door. Because what is essentially happening is gaming companies have become casinos. Gaming
Right.
companies, and I said that what the monetization you see on mobile is going to come to PC, and it's going to be very successful because you've had a generation grow up on mobile games that don't see this as a problem, and they're going to be very accepting of it. And they're going to be grateful for free games because we're going to have a bigger and bigger division here between the haves and the have-nots in the coming years.
Well, they're already starting it with Game Pass on Xbox. And
absolutely,
Sony's
great
doing
ideas, right? All you can game, but then how do you make the money? Because you can't make it off of the residuals just by splitting the monthly fee between. These games are very expensive to make. They have to do it through increasingly predatory gambling mechanics in games, and everybody's being forced to do that, even if they're the good guys. Because if you're a public company and you're not doing it, the other guy's going to get 10 times bigger than you in a year and swallow you up. And this is why Blizzard, there's been an uproar with the way they're monetizing Hearthstone now. And I'm sorry, you guys call it Hearthstone, don't you?
I don't call it anything. I never even remember it exists.
Internally at Blizzard, we always called it a Hearthstone. Sorry, but that's just the way we did it. But the public has corrected us. It's Hearthstone.
I saw the trailer for Hearthstone. I'm gonna call it Hearthstone just for you. I saw the trailer for it when it was coming out, and I was like, this game looks badass. And then I saw, wait, it's a card game. Okay, I don't care at all. Immediately lost interest. But the trailer, like all these big properties fighting each other, I was like, this is like this cool. I thought it was going to be like an Overwatch type game. And then no, it's a card game. And I was like, I hate everything about what just happened. So that's my perspective on it.
Well, it's a good game, but now they've introduced a very predatory, what people feel is a very predatory monetization scheme, where let's just say that there's a huge Reddit thread on it, and I don't follow Hearthstone enough to tell you one way or the other, except that when I looked at it, I was like, oh yeah, this is classic mobile monetization,
right?
And and so what that means is Diablo Immortals is 100% going to be predatory monetization. There's nobody left at Blizzard to stop that. There's nobody left at Blizzard that'll say this isn't a good idea. All those people are removed. J. Allen Brack is not the CEO of Blizzard. He's the president. Blizzard used to have a CEO, right?
Yeah.
Now they just have a president. That's not an accident. That's very deliberate. It means that he does not have the equal amount of say within the Activision parent company that Mike used to as CEO. Mike was right up there. He had a seat at the table. Blizzard's president no longer has a seat at that table. And you can see it. And so you're going to get predatory monetization in Diablo Immortals. I'm calling it now. And everyone's going to say, yeah, we know that's coming, but everyone hopes that it doesn't. I'm saying, leave the hope behind.
The second they said it was a mobile game, I was like, okay, So it's going to be free and it's going to cost infinity dollars to play.
Well, the old Blizzard would have done it differently. The old Blizzard would have said, I mean, we did this when multiplayer gaming was coming out and everyone was paying monthly fees for empath or whatever for matchmaking to play multiplayer. We created BattleNet and we gave it away for free. And we found a way to develop the technology. Instead of having a huge team do it, it was one guy locked in his office for a year. Brilliant guy, right?
Yeah.
And it was very efficient and it ran very efficiently, and it needed very few computer resources to do what our competitors were doing. We were always about providing value. The old Blizzard would have found a way to disrupt the mobile space, to say, you know what? That's not going to be the way it works. We're going to do it this way, and we're going to build equity in the brand rather than just grab the cash now and destroy the equity in the brand. And we will ultimately be stronger and powerful than you.
Do you think Diablo 4 is going to implement a loot box or auction house type system, or are they going to try and maintain
worse?
Guys? Worse?
It will be worse than loot boxes. I'm calling it now.
But you don't know what that is. You're just speculating that they will invent something worse than a loot box.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, there's other predatory things you can do in mobile gaming beyond loot boxes, right? But you're going to see adoption of all of that. You're going to see, and you're going to see what happens is now you're designing gameplay not as games anymore. You're designing gameplays as casino. And I did this too with Firefall. We literally had a slot machine in game that you could sit down at, put your money into, pull the lever, and see what you got. Like, it was a literal slot machine. And then I was like, you know what? This is making a lot of money. I don't want to make a game like this because everything we do is now driven towards optimizing people pulling on that lever of the slot machine in games. And to me, that's no longer gaming. So, but you can't do that. If you are a AAA studio, you have to go this route because your games are going to be given away for free. Game Pass, that's basically giving away for free. The Game Pass just covers the cost of service, and everything's got to be monetized in different ways. And games are very expensive to make and very expensive to market at that level. Right. So there's no choice. Good guys, bad guys, they all got to go this way. And the only hope is really in sort of the rise of what I call the mid-tier gaming studio, which used to be a big thing, but it disappeared. And then what you were left with AAAs and indies. But with things like self-publication and self-fundraising, the middle tier can rise again. And so that's what we're trying to do. It's like we want to be right in the middle. And we want to raise most of our funds from our customers who understand that they're paying more because they are funding a game. They're not just buying a copy of the game. They are making something happen for millions of gamers potentially.
Right.
We need to get smaller investors interested in gaming again. There's a reason why China dominates. They offer great deals on investments. They give you creative control. They don't try to nickel and dime you like U.S. publishers have for many decades and leave you bankrupt after a hit game. But Americans didn't have a taste for game investing, and this is why a lot of our industry belongs to China now.
They've been way ahead. They were buying up. They were buying up useful properties and big properties long before. I've talked about this on my stream before, but I sit on a charitable board every couple years, and the last time I was on there, just last year, we had a fund manager come in. He's a hedge fund manager for a major institution, and their entire focus was foreign investment, but it was literally half of their foreign investment was in the video game and specifically the competitive esports segment. Yep. And that's all their Chinese investment was in competitive esports companies. And he was talking about just how much money these companies are putting into it and how much they're making out of it. And it's a market that the U.S. is woefully far behind in, and they're going to need to U.S. companies are going to need to step up in their investment game here.
Yeah, I think that U.S. investors have to stop being gun shy about gaming because it's great. It's a great environment,
And
and you can.
everybody games now. Like it's not the 90s anymore where gaming is sort of stigmatized to a specific set of nerds. Like the 18 to 40 demographic goes home from work and they sit down and play on their Xbox or their PlayStation or their Switch or whatever it may be. It's not a stigma anymore. It's mainstream completely.
Yep. And but but if you are of a certain size, the investor is going to demand the same sort of return that gambling does,
Right.
because it is fully legalized in video games to do gambling. And so yeah, that's what's happening to the game industry, and that's why the game industry is not going to deliver the metaverse or the future of digital uploads and everything else, because they're too focused on casinos. Um, it's a very interesting phenomenon, and I don't think it'll be solved without laws. It's like if you don't come out and say this is illegal, people are just going to keep doing it because it's optimal.
Yeah, they are.
And I think you can strike out, and you can still do the Blizzard thing of we want to be boutique. Like for us, we said we want to choose niches that are underserved. Mecha, kaiju, very underserved. Waifu used to be pretty underserved. Then Genshin Impact came out, but it's like that's where we thrive. And also on the censorship thing, another very interesting thing. So, like I said, I know a lot of indie authors, very successful indie authors, and they know that Amazon, which is the major platform for this stuff, is going very one direction. They definitely want to promote the, let's say, more woke agenda, right? Like they want to definitely highlight this sort of thing, and their algorithms are more interested in promoting that now for like what you and I said, altruistic good reasons, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And but they are alienating everybody else who maybe wants the traditional stuff, who maybe is a little more right of center or on the right, and wants traditional stories, the Joseph Campbell stories, about characters that grow and gain powerful and bring their knowledge back and things like this. And so I know some of these authors are saying, well, there's two ways to look at it. One, Amazon is really sort of like going to be shrinking our market, or two, they're leaving money on the table, and that's where we're gonna go. We're gonna go get that money. If they don't want the money, we're gonna get the money, right? So that's the way I view gaming. It's like, hey, all these games that are capitalizing on the gambling phenomena, they're going after the whales. They're going after people with addiction problems. All this sort of stuff. What about all the gamers that just want a fun game, that just want gameplay, like you talked about
Right.
it. I want entertainment. What about the people who just want to sit down and be entertained? I look at that as money on the table for the mid tier, for companies like us. And if PlayStation and Xbox say we don't want them, get those games out of here, we'll take it. And
yeah, well, and I mean, the last thing I want on earth when I fire up a game is like a 10-minute cutscene followed by 3 minutes of gameplay and another 10-minute cutscene. Like the Skyrim intro makes me want to die because thank God for mods, because you can just skip that whole nonsense of the Skyrim intro. It's great the first time you play. It's crap every other time. And I hate it. Like I never played The Last of Us or The Last of Us 2, but what I've heard about them is basically like you're playing a movie. I don't want that. Can I just get in and start shooting or stabbing or slashing at something is my question every time. I don't want all of this cinema, all of this story shoved down my throat. I want to be the story, like that's the game for me. I mean, I'm not saying don't make these games. I'm just saying please make something else too.
Yep. And I think, and that's absolutely where we want to be. It's like I used to say this about game design since forever. I said, look, our job is to provide the stage, the props, the scenery, the and some of the dialogue, and it's up to the players to get on the stage and make it happen. And that's the way that I like to approach MMOs too. And I really do have sort of a lifelong fascination with virtual worlds, right? Where you can the potential to be anything and do anything and carve your own path, and alongside other real people, and by the millions, in a vast world is just fascinating to me. And I'm so not depressed, but I'm so disappointed in the industry that just wants to make WoW. And that's what ultimately killed the last game I was working on, Firefall. The investors wanted to make WoW. I didn't want to make WoW. And, and that was a very big point of contention. So after I left, they spent 6 months, they completely redesigned the game to try to be like WoW. And it wasn't like WoW from the beginning. And they lost their audience. We had millions of people signed up for it, and then they lost the audience. So
I think chasing that MMO model is a losing proposition anyway. What you said earlier is once mobile games came out, it was, WoW, you had to have something every 30 minutes. Now you have to have something every 5 minutes. And that's not going to change. You can't WoW, just like EverQuest was a product of its time, WoW's a product of its time. And when it goes, it will go because the attention span, the dopamine hit, whatever it is, has moved beyond what it can deliver faithfully, and it will slowly back off into its obscurity, just like everything else eventually will. And chasing WoW is a losing proposition in my mind, because when you look at the length of a game development cycle, if you started working on the next WoW today, in 5 to 7 years, when you're putting that product to market, you're behind the times.
Yep.
You're going to be making a game that is for a different era.
Yep.
And it's just a mess.
There's two ways it can happen. One is definitely, you have to cater to more rewarding moment to moment gameplay in shorter chunks. But there's another thing that's happening. Gamers are getting older.
Yeah.
And their kids are, becoming adults and moving out and doing their own thing. And you have people with a lot of disposable income, and they're getting older, and they're getting, infirm in many cases, and these people are going to want. And so traditionally, what do retirees do? They go out and they buy an RV, or they travel the world, right?
Oh, that sounds terrible.
They get a boat, right?
Yeah.
But this is what people do, or they buy a condo in Florida, and this was what it was. But COVID's made that very challenging. And also, there's something even better you can do. Why don't you retire to a virtual world where you can be young again, where you can do all the things that you can't physically do anymore, and you've got the time and you've got the disposable income to actually lead a digital life that is very fulfilling in ways that you can't have in reality because of your age or everything else. And there's going to be a whole generation of gamers that are like this. There's going to be a digital world that caters to them, and it's going to be very successful.
And the interesting part about it is the cost of entry can be really low. So they can dip their toes into the virtual world at a really low cost. But if you have a scalable economy, they can invest large amounts of time and money to do various things in that virtual world.
People are dropping $120,000 in an RV. That only gets you some of the way. I mean, what if you could do that in a game in a meaningful way that provided value to you, and you could sink $120,000 in, and you could run your own kingdom. Right.
The thing I've seen games kind of funding doing this is the makers of EverQuest are working on an MMO. The original guys are working on an MMO right now, and you can join at like the $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 levels, and you can actually, if you're at the $10,000 level, I think you participate in like zone building and story crafting and all of that stuff, and you get credit in the game, and you basically buy your way onto the dev team for some aspects of it. And seeing how that works out is really interesting. I don't know, I don't think they're quite there yet, because they're still making their thing where I believe they're trying to bring back the feel of EverQuest, and that style of gameplay.
Yeah, I'm with you. You
But-
can't go back. I mean,
But I'm saying that, companies that sort of adopt this model, and you're seeing this a lot in all aspects, not just in video games, but in comic books, in indie movies and books, where you can buy yourself into the story. People with resources are going to start doing that. Video games are a great place for them to do that. Like you said, imagine if you can drop 100,000, but you don't even have to spend that much. Imagine you can drop 10,000 and run your own kingdom on an MMO, have a zone dedicated to you and have control over it and special powers while you're in that zone, which wouldn't be game breaking everywhere else. That or what, I don't know if zones are still going to be a thing in the next 5 years, but you get what I'm saying. Just limiting the scope, but in that limited scope, expanding someone's interaction beyond the point of normal to allow them to really spend a lot of time and money into it as an investment into their own enjoyment as well as into the game itself is pretty cool concept.
Oh, it's absolutely going to happen. But I really believe that, the sort of like, if I had a choice in 20 years when I'm retired, I want to retire to a virtual world, or I want to retire to space. It's going to be one of the two. The last thing I'm going to do is buy an RV and travel the country.
That sounds awful to me. And I hate RVs.
It wasn't. I mean, if you hate RVs, but actually, when there are no other choices, that's a pretty cool way to do it. You get to see a lot, but a virtual world can show you much more and let you be much more.
Right.
And give you, this is the one thing that fascinated me about World of Warcraft is the amount of people the game has helped through depression, through disability, through, all sorts of trials of life. And we can view that negatively as a sort of like, well, we're providing an escapism, and that escapism is dangerous because it makes you avoid your real life problems. Yes, there is an aspect of that, but there's also a lot of benefit that we bring to people who are suddenly able to socialize because they have barriers in real life that prevent them from socializing with other people. But now they can have friends. And they can have friends in a virtual world, and they can be successful in a virtual world. Maybe for some reason they can't be successful in the real world. And it's not because of lack of trying or anything else. I mean, there's certainly an element of that. I'm not denying that. But there is also a tremendous amount of good that virtual worlds bring about, and the socialization component in particular. And that is what I, when I talk about, hey, right now we're pushing sort of like at what MMOs are, and we're doing very different things in MMOs, and we're taking what we learned from Firefall that worked and what didn't work, and we're chucking what didn't work and keeping the stuff that worked. But eventually, I'm going to be building towards this alternative digital future for humanity, right? In whatever form. And it could be very abstract, or it could be something that's very mundane. It could be fantasy based. It could be like, it'll
be
an infinitely large planet to explore. That's all procedurally generated, but in a good way.
It'll be a Grand Theft Auto 7 where you actually buy an RV and Grand Theft Auto procedurally generates based on Google Maps your environment, and you just drive around the actual United States in your virtual RV.
You could do that. It'd be these different experiences that are available to you, and that and it's like that sounds a lot more fun to me than buying an RV.
Oh yeah, no, Grand Theft Auto 7 RV sounds fun. Real RV sounds like maintenance and a nightmare, and a wife who's with you.
Or at another level, buying an island and retiring to the island. I mean, that's going to get boring quick,
Right. Yeah.
It's like, I want challenge. I want adventure. I want to like live another life all over again.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to that. We'll say it's getting late, so I want to get through the chats and then we can wrap up the show.
Yeah, let's do it.
Nova Zero says, hit the like button, bigots. Yeah, bigots, hit the like button. Super Iron Bob says the currency of social media is attention and time. Making someone angry enough to argue but not leave makes them stay on the site. Social media needs the anger right now to survive. Advertisers demand this. They're the evil. I don't think advertisers are the evil. I think advertisers really just want their product in front of as many people as possible. I don't actually buy the whole like advertisers disapprove of this stuff that the media companies push. I don't know. Do you have any opinion on that?
No, I don't think it's advertisers pulling the string. I think advertisers are the pawns.
I do too. Cause like, I've talked to YouTube about this and they're like, well, Gap just doesn't want their, doesn't want a Gap ad running, on a video that talks about, domestic abuse in any way. I'm like, I don't think Gap actually cares. To me, if their jeans come up on a video about domestic abuse, because no one thinks that Gap is like sponsoring the video. So I don't buy that. That just always rang hollow.
I think the adpocalypse was really social media companies using advertisers as pawns in order to push the content that they wanted and to consolidate their resources.
Right, because an advertiser will just make an ad that caters to their own social message, as we've seen.
Look what they're doing now. And
right.
it's very obvious that what you're saying is true because they are demonetizing videos, but still running ads on them.
Yeah, that one, put on your lawyer hat for the Unfair Business Practices Act of California, that YouTube is violating it every single day when they tell you that your video is not suitable for advertisers and then running the video full of ads.
And they're going to get away with it too, because those darn kids aren't doing anything about it.
Well, and like if you look at it from my perspective, if I were to go after YouTube on this, and I'm a small player on ads, all of my revenue almost entirely comes from chat interaction, right? Mm-hmm. But there is an ad bit, and if every one of my live streams was monetized for ads, I would make an additional probably $100 a show, and my life would be great. But that's unfortunately, that's not how it's going to work out. But there are other people who suffer from it much more, because if they get their entire revenue base is based on ad revenue, and so then any one video getting shut down is a big deal for them. Yep. But if we were to sue YouTube, we'd just be removed from the platform. That's the remedy. And then we'd have to try and find a way to get our income somewhere else, and it's just not going to happen. It's not worth the fight, because the reward on the class action lawsuit would be whatever YouTuber was representing the class would get like $8,000. Their lawyer would get $700,000, and no one else would get anything. Like that'd be the remedy, and then YouTube would kick them off the platform. Mm-hmm. So it's great. Queen Nidus says, StarCraft was the very first PC game I experienced as a kid through a friend. It was where I escaped to during the challenging times in my formative years. StarCraft is now dead, and so is that part of my childhood. Fuck Blizzard.
Oh, wow.
Woo. Damn.
Blizzard. Yeah, I mean, people tell me on my feed all the time, it's like, dude, Blizzard is just... that Blizzard's gone. Yeah, it is. It's totally gone.
Yep. It is. Mithrin Emrys says big game companies, quote, "Hey, here's this kid who's passionate about games and gaming. Let's drive them into the ground with work, underpay them, and completely kill that passion so long as it adds 0.0001% to our bottom line." Damn. AGK says, the death knell for me with WoW was Mists and the death of a proper skill tree. God, I miss the WoW skill trees. They killed skill trees in WoW?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What do you do now?
It's pretty much linear.
Oh. You know what's interesting when I think back on EverQuest? You talked about min-maxing or whatever.
Yeah.
To min-max in EverQuest, you had to do it only through gear. There wasn't a gear in like technique, because the stats, like there wasn't a
Oh,
min-maxing
that's
your
true, huh?
stats.
Yeah. I
And
don't think it was.
yeah, and the skill system was literally just usage-based skills, and they mattered, but it wasn't as tangible of a mattering. Like you might just miss 1 out of every 4 attacks instead of 1 out of every 3 attacks. But it was hard to quantify how much your actual like one-hand slashing skill played into your actual damage output without doing deep dives on the metrics. It was entirely gear based. There wasn't a skill based min maxing, which is really weird to me. I mean, you could have your different spells and stuff like that, and do different sort of best practices. But when I play like Final Fantasy 14, or whatever, because I didn't play WoW, so I can't compare it to that. But in Final Fantasy 14, there's a very definite min maxing pathway to the fact where you can watch YouTube videos on how to maximize your skill rotations for damage in very specific ways. And it's crazy to me to think that EverQuest was a system that didn't involve min-maxing in that way almost at all. There just wasn't a way to do it. It was weird. I don't know, just an observation.
Mm-hmm.
Austin Heartless says, what about an MMO that takes cues from MOBAs and has different campaigns based on what factions you join? I don't play MMOs unless you count Diablo 2. They have that. They have competing faction MMOs. Dark Ages of Camelot had that. The Warhammer MMO had that. I'm sure there are others.
People are barking up the wrong tree with just change the mechanics and you have a new MMO. It's like, no. You've got to go back to the social component. You've got to figure out how are you going to do that in a way that doesn't require massive investments of time, synchronized time from multiple people to achieve. And how do you get people? And you know what? Social media has solved this. Twitter is asynchronous. Facebook's asynchronous. MMOs need an asynchronous social factor, and just switching up the mechanics is not going to do it. It's not enough to make it an MMO again.
Yeah, I wonder what that will look like. Because you're saying someone has to build something in the MMO that revolutionizes the social interaction.
Yep.
So they can't just like incorporate it with Twitter or Facebook. And especially because if they do, you're suddenly under the Twitter and Facebook rules, which would be terrible.
No, that's useless because Twitter and Facebook are about talking about things that are not about the game. You need a social network that bonds players around a common thing. So the common thing being the game itself. So the whatever social network you're building into your MMO has to be tailored to highlighting the events of the world around you, which requires an extremely dynamic world, which is why we need to push towards more dynamic content in MMO, especially since you get into this trap with MMO development where you release an update, and then all users play for a week, then they churn out, and now you're going to lose all your money if you don't burn the crew and make another update really quick. We got to get off the content treadmill. That's what I call it. But that's another topic.
Absolutely. Standing on the Edge says, Mark/Nick, you guys ever play or are familiar with Chrome Hounds? It was an OG Xbox mecha game. Multiplayer was 3 factions conquering territory until one controls the whole map, then resets. My all-time favorite mech game. I've never heard of it.
I've heard of it. I've never played it, though.
I played Armored Core, the original Armored Core, a lot on PlayStation. That was awesome. God, that was cool.
1, 2, or 3?
Just one. Armored Core 1 on OG PlayStation 1. I remember my buddy and I were super into Macross, and they had the Macross missiles, right? Where you got missiles coming out of every orifice of that mecha. And he comes over to my house, and I was playing a map where like I was just strafing and firing these missiles that would shoot out and then split into 4. And I think he orgasmed while looking at it. It was a biblical experience. Blaine 20 says, Mark, if you haven't settled on a mud engine yet, I like DGD and LD mud. I write mudlibs if you decide to get into one to go tinker around and would love to help out. Oh my gosh, yes, I forgot. I'm supposed to talk to you about this. I have
Oh,
played MUDs for over 2 decades.
oh,
Well, one particular MUD is the one I always go back to. But yeah, man, I grew up on MUDs. They were great. They're my favorite thing still. I'm such a
I
freaking
didn't
nerd.
play MUDs. I didn't play MUDs because I was too busy spending all my parents' money on Gemstone for GE.
Yeah,
That is a MUD, but it's a very closed commercial MUD, and
right.
so I do know how they play, but I haven't played all the other ones, and I've kind of been interested in like, oh, I could start up a server and we could tinker around.
The first MUD I played was a MUD called Chaos MUD, and it was literally the only rule was don't crash the server on purpose. So it was great. It was very like capitalist. You just walk around killing whoever got in your way. It was a fun one. And then the one I played used to be called Turnail. Now it's called Otherworld. And I say play now. I haven't really played it in the past year, but it's called Otherworld MUD. And my buddy took over as he was the head builder, and the lead coder kind of backed away, and so he learned to code by doing the MUD and maintaining it and building new systems. It's a lot of fun. And then another one that I played was Raven MUD, which was also a very great MUD. Both of those were circle base, circle code base. Lots of good stuff there. Anyway. Yeah, let me know if you start a MUD project. I would love to
Yeah,
just tool
I'm
around
curious.
on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be fun.
They are the social aspect, right? Like that is the trick that's where MUDs went to MMOs, and MUDs were the social aspect. And I think as they lost that, they lost the flavor of being a MUD and more towards a regular sort of game. That was the whole
Yeah, I remember huge social aspects to Gemstone when I played. Yeah,
yeah.
I used to talk about it so much they would ask me to stop talking about it during
your parents or your friends or both.
No, the dev team. I'd be like, in Gemstone we would.
Please stop talking about this 20-year-old game. Iago Gaming says, thanks, Mark, for reminding me about how the algorithm gets you hyped up about the technological singularity expanding conscience. There are ways to expand consciousness organically and tap into higher levels of consciousness. Sounds like weed to me.
No. We're talking psychedelics. We're talking at least shrooms or going on spirit journeys. And this is interesting because you read about people, you hear you talk to people who do this, and they say it's life transforming, that it gives you a different perspective. People, whether it's LSD or anything else, and that is fascinating to me, to have that perspective shift, and I think that is really crucial, because. Wow, this is really metaphysical. I believe we all inhabit the same universe, but we all perceive that universe differently, and we have different filters for it. And psychedelics and things like this can give you access to filters that you've never had before, and that can fundamentally and profoundly affect the way you think, just like a much slower way is meditation or even therapy. I view, therapy as just, here's the same set of facts, but we're going to give you a couple different filters to look at it, and that are going to help you cope with it. Right. Long topic. Can't get into it tonight, but yeah, interesting stuff. Next question.
Well, I just have to ask then, have you bought a coding compound in Oregon for the legalized everything? That they just passed. Did you hear about that?
No.
Oh, they decriminalized every street drug.
Are you kidding?
Nope. So it's like it's like $125 fine for like heroin and cocaine.
Wow.
You can just go down, buy a bunch of Oxy, just eat the pills, and just pay the cop, and then have your time.
Wow.
Ghosts of GG says, follow up to the last message. See Tim Pool's 2018 video, Why News Sites Propagate Angry Feminism. It shows a gender split in social media sharing and which is more profitable for media companies. Okay, I don't want to focus too much on this, but I have a question for you. Do you think the social media space, in terms of sharing, in terms of usage, is the same today as it is in 2018? And with that, how fast do you think it'll change going forward?
You totally lost me. Why 2018?
That was the super chat here. It said Tim Pool's 2018 video on why news sites propagate angry feminism. And he said it shows the gender split in social media sharing and which is more profitable for media companies. I think that the difference between even 2018 and 2020 is dramatic, but I don't know if I'm right on that. So I was curious here.
The difference or the principle, the operating principle is the same. I mean,
no, the difference in usage between males and females and how they interact with the platform. Not the company's operation, but the user's operation.
You know, I haven't thought about that. I haven't paid attention to it. You see a big difference?
Between 2018 2020? I think 2020, and maybe this is just social media companies bubbling me, but it feels things started to accelerate in 2016, and I feel they've only gotten more political, more heated, and more engaged in that outrage every single year since. So that's where I'm seeing people engage in a different way. And I can look at family members who used to go on Facebook and, you know, post their I say Facebook because that's all the boomers in my family. But they used to just go on, post their comments and videos or pictures and videos and stuff like that. And now I see them engaging in heated political dialogue with people that they like. And it's like,
yes,
it's changed in tone. And
okay, it's not 2018, but it stretches back farther than that. I mean, social media is you posted what you had for lunch, and that was considered interesting.
Right? Yeah.
Now it's really about getting to yell at people.
But I think it's on an exponential curve of change. Like I think we went here, and it was like food pics. You're dead. Like it went to there, and now it's going up for the rest of time and faster. But that's
I think it's going to stagnate. I think these are ancient platforms now. I think Twitter is already outdated. I think Facebook is a dinosaur now. You know, you said it's boomer world. You know,
yeah, I think it's gone.
It's and you know, and a lot of this is mobile too. But yeah, I don't think so. Will it evolve? No, I think we're just going to see. You know what we're going to see? We're going to see even more rage baiting next year because there won't be as much Trump to yell at.
Right.
So I think we're going to find other things to rage bait people with.
They're going to hit more of the, not necessarily Black Lives Matters issues, but issues akin to that. They'll find grave social ills to target, and they'll hit them heavy as they possibly can.
Absolutely. And the media will help them too, because they're the unwitting fools, only because they gave their businesses up to social media companies. I warned about this 8 years ago. I said, don't cooperate. News companies should not be cooperating with social media because they're just going to steal all your news and displace you, which they absolutely did. But the media will feed into that, will highlight it, because we need more things to be upset about in order to drive because this is the most engaging thing that they do on social media.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's like the opposite of Monsters Inc.
Yeah.
Bad Dragonite says, Mark, I'd love to see you get E-celebs on as spokespeople for Ember, like Belle Delphine. It'll be like those old WoW celebrity endorsement ad campaigns, like Mr. T and the Night Elf Mohawk.
What would Belle you want to play?
Oh, I'm sure she could play with something. Bad Dragonite also says, Mark, tell us about the Smell-O-Vision add-on that was almost in WoW. I still want the
Oh,
smell of mech diesel. Also, if every game should have fishing, will Ember have mecha fishing?
there was first of all, yeah, every MMO I make has fishing in it because my wife loves fishing, introduced me to fishing, and in games that's what she, she loves to fish in Japanese RPGs, so she said WoW's got to have fishing. And so I went in and I was like, hey, can we make a fishing game? Can we make it cool? How about if we did this? And I authorized it and we did it, and that's why WoW has fishing. So yes, Ember will have fishing from mechs, and I think you're going to be able to fish on top of your mech as well as with your mech itself. I think that's got to be a thing. The other part
Fishing
of
in
that,
Fate was great, by the way.
yes, I did not design the mechanics of fishing, just but I did push and authorize and make it happen. So what was the other part? The earlier part of that question, I already forgot it.
It was where did it go? Oh yeah, the Smell-O-Vision add-on that was almost in WoW.
So there was a company that was coming out with, and I read about this technology, and I was like, we have to call these guys. They were creating. This was back when everyone was like, internet shopping is going to be amazing, right? And Amazon was just kind of getting started with books, and and so this company created a device that could reproduce a wide variety of scents, and this was not fake. This device, according to people who used it, actually worked. And it worked on like inkjet printer technology. You had 5 different essential oils. They're not essential oils, but they're like 5 different building block scent oils that are in them. And then the little valves and solenoids would like release precise mixtures of this stuff into the atmosphere. And everyone was trying to create. Back then, they called them, a hub, a web hub, or a portal for bringing people together, like a Yahoo or that type of thing. It was a very big web strategy back then. So these guys wanted to create a portal too. They were going to call it the Snortle, and the Snortle was going to be the sort of like fragrant shopping area of the web. And it's like shopping for your groceries on Amazon. You can smell the lettuce. You can smell the the shrimp on the Barbie or whatever it is. And so I said, I want this in WoW, because I want you to walk into a zone and smell pine needles. And I think it'd be hilarious when, and when the undead walk by, I want it to stink. And,
right. But everybody would be playing in like a Bane mask or whatever.
Oh yeah, it'd be terrible. It was a horrible idea. And I wanted one so badly because I wanted just to experience how awful it could be.
I'm looking for group. Please send tell. Oh god, that'd be great.
Never got to market, so unfortunately WoW never supported the Snortle.
Xander Zran says, Nick, Digibro's favorite anime K-On! Is considered a Mo. On another note, did you get any game sales? Any game sales? Game sales of what? I don't know what you're talking about. Ed Gein's Anime Milkers says, guess it's time to renew my Ember subscription. Yes, it is. Kermit the Frog, and I apologize for this. The acid was long gone, but the mescaline was running strong. Good mescaline comes on slow. The first hour's all waiting. Then about halfway through the second hour, you start cursing the creep who burned you because nothing is happening. And then zang! People have me say weird stuff as Kermit. I don't get it. But it's good. Bad Dragon Knights. What?
You do a Kermit voice.
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay. All right.
Bad Dragon Knight says, I think if you want a pseudo preview of a metaverse in gaming, you should look at survival games like Ark and Conan Exiles. If you play in the official servers, they're a fascinating look into human interactions. People go crazy lengths in them.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fascinated by that.
Dread Clown says, Diablo 3 was a cash grab that removed features from Diablo 2 Lord of Destruction that I played for 10 years. I boycotted Blizzard since that game and have not given them a single dollar. Look, that's the trend of RPGs, is removing features, simplifying and mainstreaming the RPG experience. Just look at every Bethesda game from Daggerfall on. Remove features, make it smaller every time.
Yeah.
Meximan and She says, I'm starting to suspect the only reason they're pushing the lockdown as hard as they are now is to keep people from talking to each other IRL and only have communications through censored channels. There's almost zero socialization offline right now. Red Clown says the experience Kern was talking about where achievement is really earned and social diplomacy is necessary has evolved in games like Rust, Ark, and Atlas, where progress is hard. However, it's a prison where you have to join a gang or become someone's bitch.
Wow.
I haven't played any of those, so I don't know what that's like. But yeah, that's been the MMO model for a while.
Ark servers are like what, 100 players? So
I have no idea.
It's fascinating that can evolve in a server that small.
But in EverQuest, you had to join a guild. Like that was if you wanted to progress to certain content, you had to join up with a guild. That's how they pushed the higher end content, was coordination, and coordination was done through playing with the same people. Same with Final Fantasies 11 and 14. I don't know what the solution is.
Yeah, I don't know either. I think one of them is you automatically get put into a group. We had this wacky idea, and I think it was for WoW or it was afterwards, where we would, you know how like Harry Potter has a sorting hat. You go into one of these houses, right? We thought about not so much like doing it on a personality quiz, but actually basing it on when you joined the game. And so you'd be the class of whatever. And, you know, and we would sort you that way. And then we were going to have some mechanics around that. It was a really experimental idea that didn't go anywhere, but it's just interesting. It's like, you know, we could, if groups are mandatory, why don't we create interesting groups for you to be a part of when you come in? Why isn't there a sorting hat? Why don't you get sorted through and put in one of these houses? I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, that seems to carry all sorts of weird potentials. Not all bad, just strange, just different.
Yeah, I have no idea what the ramifications would be because I just thought of it right now. So, with that question,
well, if you implement it, I expect $1 in royalties. Ishailson says, "Hats off to you for your ingenious idea, using all this super chat money to get a clone so you can stream twice a day for more chats." Bravo, Nikki. Yes, I streamed earlier today, and I will stream earlier tomorrow. I've been wanting to do it forever, and now I'm starting to have the time to do it. So. Mainly because my state just locked down again. Vienticus Prime says, Kermit, it's Double Grift Monday. Open your wallets. There you go. Angry Baneling says, I told them, Nick. I told them you'd be early, but the heathens had no faith in you. Praise the aggressive naval connoisseur and on-time lawyer. Viden the Cold One says, to honor my deal with Angry Baneling, congrats on 2 shows on being 2 shows on time in one day. Thank you. Ace Brain 2003 says, double the streams, double the grift. Angry Baneling says, obligatory StarCraft greater than Warhammer while Mark's here. But it's not true. It's not true.
I can't comment on that.
Sonic Air 1375 says, if a war starts under Biden, wouldn't that destroy any attack that the media could possibly throw at Trump? Because again, Biden is the great peacemaker. No. All of the great peacemakers of the past have started new wars. Trump is the first president in a long time to not really increase our foreign war involvement. And he doesn't get any credit for it, and he probably should. But, you know, the war is profitable for a lot of people, especially these wars that are not like massive world wars, but just these little wars that we get involved with.
We get the forever war, but we don't get the cool shit. We're our space marines. We're our, you know.
Exactly. Yes. Where's my genetic enhancements and my servo assisted muscles? That's what I want. Because I've got TVs to lift. Vienticus Prime says the future looks very Shadowrun. I'm not familiar with Shadowrun's lore. Are you?
Only if elves and dwarves stop popping out. Shadowrun blends fantasy with cyberpunk.
Oh, okay. Sounds delicious. Architect of Fate says, you have to use a personality test to group people if it's needed. This may be the only way I can see it, but an Ancapistan will rise. Then we can all watch the communists starve as they're not allowed to log out and grind for materials. Blaine20 says, Mark, any new Ember t-shirts coming?
Oh, we need to do merch. We'll get our. You see, we could do a regular t-shirt, but I want to do something a little different. There's some people I need to talk to you about that, but we should do merch around the Kickstarter time. That would be a good time to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Put it as a high reward tier. VP says, welcome to Paralegal Status. Thank you for joining the channel. Super Alfredo 64 says, wait, Nick, if you leave Twitter, what would become of the Ronversations? Oh, I mean, I'm not going to like delete the account. I'll just suspend it or whatever.
Are you thinking about leaving Twitter too?
Yes. I hate the interaction on there. The only reason I like stay on Twitter and try and foster a presence is for promoting the show. And I think if I build up my Parler platform, I could just do it there just as well. And avoid a bunch of the BS that I have to deal with on Twitter. So.
I should create a Reset Era account and see how long I last. You think I would be banned on site?
I don't know. You should be. Maybe we should create them on the same day and have a race to get banned on Reset.
Oh, that'd be fun. We should do it. That'd be a fun experiment.
Redrick Lasser says, hello, Nick. I work in a grocery store and all the Aunt Jemima products now don't have her on them. Racism defeated. Austin Heartless says, I'm more of a Diablo 1+2 guy. Disappointed in D3. Low expectations for D4 and Diablo Immortal. I stopped following the D4 news, and I like D3. I really do.
Diablo Immortal will be immensely successful and the most soul-sucking cash grab of all time simultaneously.
Do you think that they'll balance that with Diablo 4 and make it like a good experience and then use Immortal to subsidize it? Like, am I being naive and hopeful in that?
I have no idea. I have no idea what's going to happen because, like I said, I think Diablo 4 is probably going to be free. It's probably going to be, available on Blizzard Activision's own version of Game Pass. And then they're going to monetize it some way at that point. So,
see, what I was hoping is they would monetize the Rube normies on Diablo Immortal and make D4 like a purist PC gaming experience like Diablo 2 was.
Well, they promised that, right? They said we're going to give you what you want with Diablo 4. Please forget that we did this Diablo Immortal thing.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, they can afford it. But
yeah.
Companies aren't altruistic, even classic Blizzard isn't altruistic. We used to say we're just smart about it. We blend business sense with gaming sense, and
the last time I played even a Diablo 3 season, the last time I booted up a single game was before they banned the guy saying free Hong Kong at the Blizzard tournament.
Oh, yeah.
The moment they did that, and it's weird because, like, that was a one-time thing, and it was really a bad move, but at the same time, like, that doesn't change how I like Diablo 3, and I know that me playing Diablo 3 now doesn't give Blizzard any money, but I just have no interest in it from that point on. I was just like, I never go to click on it. And it's like, I think they have so soured me. And I stopped following Diablo 4 news shortly thereafter, and I'm no longer excited for that game. And I think that did it.
I still don't play Blizzard games after Hong Kong. I said I was leaving, and I meant it. So
yeah.
I also don't think I have a lot to learn from them anymore. Right. After leaving Blizzard, I was like, okay, let's see what my friends are doing. But they're all gone now. They're starting new studios and things like this. And I don't feel like I have a lot to learn from Blizzard anymore. And neither did, and no one should really pay attention to them as a game developer.
If I need to learn how to kneel to the CCP, I'll play Blizzard games again. That's Architect of Fate says you have to use personality. Oh wait, I read that one. Never mind. Ignore that. Halesburg says, question for Mark. What are your thoughts on Richard Garriott?
I don't know him. I mean, I've met him.
Who is he? I don't know who he is at all.
Founder of Origin, dude. Creator of Ultima Online.
Okay.
Not Ultima Online, but the Ultima series. Which
he's Lord Britain.
Lord British, yes.
Or Lord British, yeah.
And that's a very creative, driven guy. I mean, and I have a lot of respect for his games. I love the Ultima series. I was the only one of my friends who didn't cheat on Ultima 4 because it was so hard. He has a lot of grand ideas, and he's kind of one of these eccentric personalities, right? Like he built a castle to live in with secret passages and everything else. And his father was an astronaut, and he also went to the moon, which is very interesting, Nick, because apparently the best time to file a lawsuit or to basically confiscate the stock of one of your key employees is when they're in orbit and they can't get their attorney. This is what NCSoft did to Richard Garriott.
If I'm not mistaken, it's because of, I don't know if it was that case or another case, but they now allow extensions or remote filing or something for being in space. There's a specific exemption now.
Maybe it was this because they totally used the fact that he was up in orbit. I don't. So what do they do? How do you serve him?
Yeah. He should argue that because you could serve him at his residence with any adult present, and that would be fine. So you just serve his wife. Like on a little NASA camera, like flipping through the pages. Here's page 4. Did you read it yet?
Leave it to a game company to have come up with that. That legal strategy. It's like, we're going to wait until he's in space, and then.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
How long is he in space? 38 days. Yeah.
I played Ultima 7 a little bit, but once I learned about the cheat that you could type in to start, where you could give yourself like unlimited strength and you could like literally just grab walls of houses, I never played it properly after that. So it was unfortunate.
I did hear one thing about Richard Garriott, because I had people who worked on Tabula Rasa work for me, and they all said he was a brilliant guy, but he was also way out there, which usually means to me that he's got really good ideas, but he can't dumb them down enough or lead the horse to water. This is a problem that a lot of visionaries have, right? They'll have like a really awesome idea, but it's so far out there that it's intimidating and scary and unintelligible. You have to be able to break it down into micro steps and sort of lead your team along the path 1 foot at a time. And I think Richard Garriott functioned very well when it was just him as a coder, or it was a very small team, because he doesn't have to sort of like galvanize an entire development team. I think where Richard got into trouble is because he's such a visionary, getting onto a big team, he can't break it down for a big team, and he's not doing it himself, and so he has to be able to find a way to break it down. I think that's why Tabula Rasa had a troubled development. The ideas he came up with, I thought, were brilliant, and I think just people couldn't really see where he was going, and he had a lot of trouble communicating that vision.
Sure. I'm other than Ultima in general, I have no idea who he is. So I'll take all of your word as gospel. Socialism is for figs, says Hunter Biden laptop just dropped on the Don.win. So you guys can check that out, I guess. Kalinka Pavlova says, quote, "We're a real company now. Maybe I don't know many CEOs, but one I do know would be furious at that dickhead." Who said that? Green Apple says, "Mark, have you talked with Raging Golden Eagle? I'd love to hear you guys chat sometime."
I don't know.
Raging Golden Eagle's great.
Okay.
He's a good dude. He talks a lot about anime and hentai and stuff like that.
Okay.
Kalinka Pavlova says, "Housing is the real MMO endgame. Changed my mind." Uh, next, yeah, no kidding. You try to get housing in Final Fantasy 14, it's impossible. The market is saturated, and you have to like actually camp out and try and get your. It doesn't work. Next, he says, Mark, allegedly a lot was cut from WoW. Any truth?
Sure, we cut tons of stuff. Even in the very beginning stages, we were always worried about production time to create an entire world. And so we would be cutting races while they were still on the whiteboard, and then as we got closer
Listen to this. Just getting rid of entire races. Oh my goodness, Mark Kern.
oh,
You
no.
heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. Eugenicist Mark Kern.
Yeah. There we go. That's exactly the way it'll play out. And and then all along development, we were very cognizant of that. And at the end, I think, we pulled PvP until afterwards. We were going to launch with it, but we pulled it and held it. So there's a lot of stuff that we held back on. And I also had like a 10-page document about where, what we could do with WoW, where we could take it afterwards. And I left it when I left Blizzard. I left it in the drawer. I was like, there it is. And I don't think anyone looked at it. Some of it was implemented later on. Other games implemented it very well. One of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to do a trading card game in WoW. And of course, Hearthstone proved that was viable, but even more than that, Witcher proved it was viable. So there was a lot of ideas like that were left behind. And we had what we called the list of love. So ideas never, because we were triaging so much, we didn't like throw the idea away. We tried to put it in one central document that was always preserved, and we could always come back to the list of love when we were trying to think about the next thing that we wanted to do.
Sure. I think that's true of every game though. Like, you have things that you want to put in the game that aren't going to make it. Like you either can't do it, you don't have the budget for it, you don't have the manpower for it, you don't have the time, whatever it may be, or it just ends up being a bad idea. There's a lot cut. I remember,
and there's truth to saying that good design is really about what you decide to leave out versus what you decide to put into the game.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a MMO, I think it was called Horizons. And I remembered my buddy and I were following its development. We were really excited. It had like 32 races and they were crazy. They had races all the way from like human and like gnomes and stuff like that, all the way to like dragons and angels and demons. Yep. And then the game comes out, like its development cycle got truncated heavily because it got bought up and then just released. And they had like 6 normal races and then dragons, and they were embarrassingly implemented, and it was garbage. It was like, God, what you look at their vision for the game and what they professed that they were going to put out, and then the actual product, and it was the saddest contrast I've ever seen. But yeah, I think a lot has to get cut from every game though, because you just can't make everything that you want to do.
Absolutely. It's the same for anything, really.
The physicality channel. Yeah. Yep. I agree. Physicality channel says this is exactly it. Instancing and phasing destroyed normal WoW for me. Vienticus Prime says, am I going to have to physics explain to Mark why you can't transfer a consciousness from a human being? Does he have to physics explain to you?
No, I'm not actually talking about transfer of consciousness. I'm talking about extending and enabling a richer life through the use of virtual worlds.
Yeah, because those are two different things, though. I've talked to Null, and what he and I have talked about, like what the afterlife is like, and he talks about your consciousness living on in digital medium. Right? Like you literally upload a conscience, but I'm like, that's not me though, because I'm still here. That's a replica of me. And then that's something else, that whatever that is not me, because I'm
you would branch
to this.
You'd be like Star Trek. You'd have an alternate timeline story.
I wouldn't though. I would just die like normal. Like I'm going to eventually die. and then some other consciousness will live on that starts as a symbiotic replica of me and then does its own thing, because that's
I firmly believe that, Nick, you're not you anymore. You're not the Nick that started the show, because we've had thoughts, we've had engagements. Your brain has rewired itself during this, and it gets even more dramatic when you talk about cell replacement in the body, right? Like, I forget how long it takes. Now, it's not neurons, but neurons get rewired all the time. So I'm not the same person I was a year ago. So if we are able to copy ourselves at that instant in time, we're not the same people. The consciousness is it's a duality. It's existing both at the same time, but we're different people at that point. So
right,
yeah, because what you're saying, if you upload yourself, at the point of upload, you forked.
Right. My experiential reality is locked to this. I can't transfer my experience of my consciousness to a digital version of my consciousness. If that makes sense. It's the problem with cloning, right? Like, I can't clone a younger me and then transfer my experience into that. I'm stuck here, as far as I can tell. But anyway, that's a weird topic. Very metaphysical. JCF Data says, "Evening, Nick. I have been in a number of companies that say things to justify bad actions. But we are a big boy company now. Hey, we are not a mom and pop shop anymore. Put on the big boy company pants. We're a major player now." Yeah, that's it's a weird perspective, but people have it. Skeet Neat says, "How much anime naval ritual sacrifices do I have to perform in order to get mechas based on the Enclave from the Fallout series? References are X-01, Advanced Power Armor Mach 2, and Hellfire Power Armor." So
wow. That's really awfully specific.
Yes.
Wouldn't that? I think I'd have some copyright issues with that. I don't
Probably.
Or I don't know.
Cal Clay says, "Nick, Tim Pool and quartering vid, 2 hours, 4 minutes, and 50 seconds. Your name is said." Oh, okay. I'll have to go check it out. Hopefully they said something hateful. Painful Buggery says, "According to Blalook, I'm blocked by 2,512 people. By consequence, no one report happy ever sees me, so Twitter thinks I'm a good boy." I wonder how many people have blocked me. That's interesting. Cal Clay says, "How long do you think Canada can be denied hockey before we riot against our government overlords? Think of Vancouver a few years ago happening in multiple cities." I don't know. All I know is that when the U.S. Was denied hockey, we just did lacrosse and no one cared.
The only reason why being locked in is working is because we have the internet.
Yeah. They couldn't have done this in 1985.
Yep. People would have rioted. The only reason you don't have riots is because we have Twitter.
Yep.
We get to riot on Twitter and yell at each other.
Cal Clay says, "Nick, did you hear that DC vaccinates kids without parents knowing?" That bill hasn't passed yet. It's actually tabled until 2021, I believe. But yes, we did read through that on the show. Very terrifying stuff. Phoenix Lord Asterman says, "Star Trek is post-scarcity. If they were space commies, they would have starved to death long ago." Virday says, "You'll be happy to know that the holodecks are self-cleaning. If you have tech that can selectively break down matter, everything is always clean."
I guess that's the point.
I'd assign a guy still.
It builds moral character.
Right. That's the punishment whenever you do anything wrong. JCF Data says, "October 25th, 2011, the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals on Friday affirmed a judgment of almost $32 million in favor of computer gaming pioneer Richard Garriott in a breach of contract case against South Korea-based NCSoft Corporation." Cool. I don't know any.
That's the one. The space case. That's the one.
That's fantastic. Cody Duffin says, "Games used to be made by gamers for gamers. Now they're made by corporations for shareholders." Death Trout says, "I started a playthrough of Skyrim this evening. Started the game up and went to make a cup of Dragon's Treasure Black Butler tea. Good choice. Good choice. Wait for that stupid cart scene to be done." Real Character says, "Question to Kern. How do you feel about Final Fantasy XIV has been going? About how it's been going. So far, it's been going up since Realm Reborn. Why do you think that is the case? They're saying it's getting better since a Realm Reborn.
Um, I
Are
don't
you
play it.
familiar with 14's development cycle?
A little bit, yeah. Like the whole redo, the whole reset.
Yes, I was playing it before the reset. It was a disaster.
Okay.
But I liked it.
I actually think that that's a very good thing that we should learn from. The fact that they were able to save such a huge investment, and similar to, say, how No Man's Sky turned it around. We big publishers could learn from this. Stop. The difference between a good game and a bad game is often inches. You know, it's often push pull here and there. And it's the trick is finding the fun. And so it seems so wasteful for me when companies just shut down games entirely, rather than that they've spent like, $100 million, $200 million developing, rather than sit down and actually do a reset and attempt a reset or continue to grow and add the content like No Man's Sky does. I think that if I wasn't busy making games, I'd go in and be a game turnaround specialist. You know how there were like corporate turnaround specialists in the 80s and stuff? If your company
Like
was
Mitt
doing
Romney.
like, is that what he did? Oh, great.
No, he's
completely eviscerating my point.
No, I'm just kidding. He was the guy who he did turn around a couple companies like Staples, but he usually did it because they would buy up a company and fire everybody.
I think there should be more of that in games. I think that a lot of games can be saved, and investments can be saved, and a lot of jobs can be saved. But companies just cancel and fire, and it's a huge mistake in my book.
Yeah, 14. The one thing I miss about 14 from the pre-Realm Reborn stuff was your class was determined by the weapon you wielded. So you could change classes by literally changing weapon that you were wielding at the time. And that was an interesting sort of feature, the ability to swap classes on the fly in the field. And I didn't get to play with that too much because the game fizzled out and then came back. And I don't know. I don't like 14 that much because there's too much cinema and storytelling. It's like skip.
I actually have a subscription, and I started playing it, and I was bored immediately because of the MMO tropes. So, but people keep telling me I should go back. I did keep it around, so maybe I'll try it again.
You could just buy your way to level 75 or 80 or whatever it is now, and then you only have to grind out like a little bit.
Somebody told me that at the beginning. It's like, oh, you want to be level 60 before it's fun, and I just instantly lost all interest.
Yeah. Anyway, people are telling me that's still how it works. I feel like it was easier prior to the Realm Reborn stuff, or that it was more fluid than it is now. But maybe I'm mistaken. I don't know. Yashken says the sense of adventuring is what's missing in gaming. I think that's partially true. I remember adventuring in EverQuest and like wondering what was below the lava, and so it turns out there was nothing there but death. But that's, like that idea of going into a new zone and there being mystery was something real. I don't know. Mr. James in Bloggington says, I can't wait for the MNC's virtue signaling over BLM to get on a board with Uyghur and Falun Gong Lives Matter in the immediate future. I have no idea what most of that sentence means.
Falun Gong. Yeah.
I don't know who Falun Gong is.
They're like a religious movement in China that was severely cracked down upon, and everyone was arrested. But I don't know that much about it either.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Let's see. CJ says, why can't crafting ever be as good or better than raid drops or raid drops to make the best gear? Make crafting great again. No, you get out of here, you scumbag. Get out of my channel. Raid drop should always be better than crafted gear. Crafted gear should always go away forever. I hate crafting in games. I hate it. I hate it. Oh my god, I hate crafting. Is there crafting in Ember?
It's all crafted gear.
Are you serious?
I'm sorry.
Can I craft a bus to run myself over? God, I hate crafting.
No, you don't. But you don't sit there and gather mushrooms at spawn points.
That's
It's
what you say now.
no. We actually, with Firefall, we created a method of resource gathering that was actually fun. That it was the Thumper encounter, where you dropped a huge mining drill and you had to defend it against waves of attacks and things like this. And the more you pushed it, the more reward you got. And it was fully dynamic. The spawns for resources weren't static, and they aren't in Ember either. You don't know. It's like every given day could be a different location, a different place where you have to go, and a different rarity. So no, gathering resources was actually fun in Firefall, and Firefall crafting was very intricate, unfortunately. So it appealed to people who really liked that. But for people who just wanted to make shit and get on with their lives, it was a little more difficult. You had to understand the entire complexity of the crafting system to get anything out of it. So Ember bifurcates that. You have the fun resource gathering component, and you have very simple recipes. Just put in whatever resource you want of the right type. You don't have to worry about its rarity or quantity, and then out comes the standard item. You want the but then you say, well, now I'm behind the people who really are into crafting because they can min-max. It's like, no, you can go to advanced crafters and they can tune the weapon for you. You just give them the mats and everything, and they'll do it, and they can charge you a price if they want to.
So how much grinding do I have to do to build my crafting skill? Because you talked about resource gathering, and that's only one step. The other step is sitting there, kneeling down like a moron, hammering on something in an animation.
No, there's no skill up for crafting.
Oh, thank God.
There is a tech tree, and you basically, so it's like XCOM, right? So you go out on missions, you gather stuff, and you put them back, and you invest in research, and you build these bases as you terraform the planets. You push territory in, and part of those bases are research facilities that you can donate resources to, and depending on the resources you donate, you can accelerate the unlocking of different recipes in your crafting tree. And then once you have the recipe, you can just go make it immediately.
Okay, I'm gonna defer because I trust you.
It's the crafting game for people who don't like crafting.
I hate it with a passion. Like, that's one of my biggest problems with Final Fantasy 14. In all honesty,
you don't want to craft, and get yourself a personal crafter and go out and shoot stuff.
Is a personal crafter like a real person or like an in-game personal crafter?
It's a real person.
Oh, so like a slave or whatever.
No, I mean, you could come to a mutually beneficial arrangement.
Okay. Harris says, what if we had an HP style sorting hat? Oh, Harry Potter style sorting hat, but it paired traditionally opposed racial groups like Pashtuns with Tajiks, blacks with whites, Turks and Armenians.
Hey, online, no matter, nobody knows who you are, so why not?
We're healing the world. Phoenix Lord Asterman says, if you want a good Ultima retrospective, you should check out Spoonie's old videos. His Ultima Final Fantasy vids are still fun a decade later. Death Trout says, I mentioned you in the Tim Pool vid. I accused him of trying to steal your Grift King crown. He's days away from passing me if he hasn't. Ron Crossman says, what are the Mark's thoughts on Star Citizen? Is that game ever coming out?
Huh. Well, Chris Roberts is one of the reasons I got into video games, because I loved Wing Commander so much, and I wanted to make games like that. And part of Ember is inspired by Strike Commander, which is it was basically you're supposed to be part of a mercenary team going out with your F-16s and stuff, running missions, much like the way Ember is about you forming like little mercenary squads, getting your mech teams together and going out. So I think what happened to Chris was, wow, he just had to keep promising a bigger and bigger game. And I think, it's doing well enough that it's funding itself and they're coming out with builds. The code base, but looking at the way the game plays, and I've played a couple of demos now, and I was an early backer, and I can just see the technical issues that they're up against. And it's sort of like, well, if you paint yourself into a corner technically in the beginning, sometimes you're better dropping it and coding it from scratch. And if I were Chris, I'd be like, hey, some of this technical stuff is insurmountable because of the way we did it. Hey, let's pull a Final Fantasy. Let's put a hold on public builds for 6 to 8 months, and let's re-architect this and get it working right. And I think it'd be a fine game. I think a lot of it is just the technical issues get in the way of enjoying the game and get in the way of achieving the vision that Chris wants to achieve. I think he should do the painful thing and re-engine.
Sounds like a long window. Death Trout says, Mark, now you have to make a craftable bus just that only runs the one player over. Call it Nick's special bus. You craft it and immediately just get creamed by it. Like it's you successfully craft it and then a bus just comes in and just runs you over. It's great. TJ says, raid crafting, do it, and make rackets do it all. Angry Baneling says, Mark, when is Ember coming to Steam early access? Oh God, I hope never.
If it depends, are they going to ban Naval? Because they keep flip flopping on what they're banning for content.
Man, I was such a big fan of Warhammer Eternal Crusade, Warhammer 40k Eternal Crusade. It was a planet-side style Warhammer shooter with map acquisition, stuff like that. And they had huge plans for the game, like a giant global map that would you would have to like fight for territory and expand over and over, like taking bases, big events and all this stuff. And then it went to Steam Early Access. And every one of those features died, and it just became like a 5-map shooter, like every other shooter, except it was terrible. God, it's the worst. They ruined that game. Anyway, a couple more.
Has there ever been a good adaptation of of Warhammer to a video game?
Warhammer Space Marine was pretty good. Actually, it was really good, I should say. It was a lot of fun. It was a third-person shooter, and the combat was great, visceral, and everything. And then the servers ended up shutting down, and now basically no one plays it, which is a shame because the PvP on it was really fun and pretty well balanced. Dawn of War 1 was great. Really, really fantastic.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Dawn of War 2, I enjoyed a lot, but I don't think people liked it as much. Dawn of War 1 Dark Crusade was pinnacle, in my opinion. That was the peak Warhammer. I really liked Dawn of War 2's Last Stand mode though. It was almost like a MOBA, but a PvE MOBA, and it was that was a lot of fun to play.
They still sell Warhammer 40k Space Marine.
Yeah, they do. But if you buy it on Xbox or PlayStation or whatever, you're in for a single player experience only. I believe they shut those multiplayer servers down entirely. And if you try and play it on PC, you have to link up with like a Warhammer YouTuber who has a Discord server that plays it multiplayer on a schedule.
Well, how's the campaign?
The campaign's fun. It's just not very long. But it's a good game. It's a good single player game. But the multiplayer is where it really shined, like any shooter. That's kind of how it goes. But I know that who was it? Brother Alpha Busa or whatever might have been the guy. One of the guys was really, they were playing it a lot. Their Discord was playing it a lot. And so if you went on at the right time, you could join into multiplayer games, but it's pretty hard to find them normally.
Okay.
But it is a fun. I mean, if it's like $10 or $20 or whatever, it's probably worth the play.
$29.
29?
Yep. After all this time.
Wait for it on a Steam sale or a Humble Bundle and pick it up for like $5 or $10 because it's 100% worth it at that price. 29's a bit much for kind of a dated.
Yeah.
Xander's Rants says, Moe as in Moa, the anime girl Mark was saying he offered. You asked him what it was. Digibro's favorite anime, K-On! Is Moa, and there are a lot of games Game sales happening right now. Did you get anything? Oh no, I'm not buying any. I haven't bought any games lately. Also, what is Mark's favorite game? What's your favorite game, Mark?
Of all time, probably the original XCOM. It's probably the only game that I lost sleep over. I just did not sleep until we finished it. So
That's a good choice. I don't know what mine is, but I always go back for this answer to Master of Magic.
played the hell out of that. It was so buggy.
It was
so
buggy.
buggy.
Buggy as hell, but man, was it fun.
Mhm.
And infuriating. The Pie Baker says, so did Parler redact their terms of shit? Yes. Parler actually listened to the community and modified their terms of service and took out some of the really egregious stuff. They still ban like hentai and stuff like that, but at least they don't ban specific speech. Like, you're not going to get banned for calling someone a fatso. Bad Dragonite says, in Ark, you can actually send all your stuff to other servers. They are multi-server alpha tribes with massive wars. We just kind of survived as a traveling boat tribe. Found one successful group that only sold jerky and beer called Beef Jerkin Brew Boys. Ampathos guy says, message for Mark. Any roadmaps or plans on when Ember will start funding?
The main funding round we're doing is the Kickstarter, and we're preparing for that. And we're not taking Thanksgiving off, so I can't say when. It's going to be early next year. Let's say early.
Very
First half.
Cool. Very cool. Malik Foxon says, been done with Blizzard since Blitzchung and Hong Kong. Let him die. Also, find myself needing a printer desperately. Went through a lot of trouble to get this one day off, and last minute bro needs something printed for driver's test. He likes to ruin plans. You don't have a printer? You can come to my house and print it. I don't know where you live. I have a nice HP printer from my office. Angry Bainling says, Mark, the best Warhammer 40k game is called StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty, and it had 2 amazing expansions to go with it. Facts. That's not a fact, Angry Bainling. Benjamin the Rogue says, have you seen the Astartes fan series on YouTube?
Yes.
Good man, Emperor of Mankind. You all need to see that. You too, Kern, right now. Yes, I heard they released a 5th episode, and I haven't seen that. But I watched the first 4. I think they were great.
Yeah. I watched at least the first 4. When did the 5th come out?
I don't know. I saw a video talking about it. So maybe it didn't come out and they were speculating. I don't know. I didn't watch the video. I just saw it on my YouTube feed. Phoenix Lord Asterman says, a 40k MMO would be amazing. If only Eternal Crusade were half what it hoped to be. I'd love to explore a small sector with an Eldar fleet. I had the grandest plan for the biggest 40k MMO ever, and it would take me an entire show to explain it, but just trust me, it was great. No one will ever do it. But it combined basically everything. First-person shooter, RPG, RTS, for different subscription tiers for what you wanted to do. It would have been really cool. Viden the Coleman says, Angry Bainling needs to be slapped. That's true. All right, man. That's the chats we've got. So, I guess, is there any final thoughts you have for the stream? I mean, we kind of went from Big Tech Censorship into game design, which I am 100% comfortable with. But I didn't know if there's anything you wanted to tidy up before we wrap up the show.
No, it's just this has been a really fun show, and talking about these topics has been great. And I've been wanting to talk about games, and particularly MMOs, and where I see stuff going with that in a very high level. It's helping me refine my thoughts. So this has been great. Thank you very much for having me again.
If you ever want to talk more, like just that, let me know. I love to talk about this stuff. Really do. So,
okay, as long as your audience isn't bored.
They're still here. I always ask why. They're still... No, I think it's great because they don't, we plebeians don't get to see the internal workings of game design. And so talking about it with you is really interesting for me. I think people find it very interesting too, because they get a window into the worlds that they delve into. So I think people love it. So anytime you want to talk about it, just let me know. I'm happy to chat with you. I could bring other people on too if we want to have a group discussion. So either way. But,
awesome. Okay.
All right, audience, if you want to hang around for just a second, Mark, so I can say goodbye to you in private. Audience, thank you so much for joining us. Mark's Twitter and Ember's link are in the description. Go check them out. Support Ember, support good game design, and non-AAA studio hegemony, and and see what we can make, you know, as people go out there and start building projects on their own. Shadows King 101 says Mark is great, Nick sucks. Hope this helps. It does.
Why?
It does.
Why do you still have an audience?
I don't know. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. I will be over on Twitch in a little bit. I don't know what movie we're watching. I'm sorry. We'll figure it out there. Have a good night, guys. Peace.